You see, God
So
himself
so so
allows
you
us.
don't.
I'm
So
sorry,
bad.
would you like to talk over me or would you like to listen?
Go ahead.
Sir, if you would like to have a conversation, I'd be happy to do so. But if you're going to talk over me again, I'll mute you again.
No
Are we
no no
clear?
no, Batman. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Again, sir, according to any worldview that denies the Christian God, there is no such thing as worldview as free will, and you have to hold to that because
Hmm.
free will cannot be accounted for in a truly physical world
I
because
agree.
chemical reactions happen the same way over and over again.
I
But God
agree.
has gifted us this ability to have certain free will, limited free will. We don't have ultimate free will, but God allows us to make certain choices. That is a gift straight from God that you cannot explain without God, sir.
How does this gift work? Do you know how like the mechanism of the gift works? Like what causes what, and is that a what like how does the gift work?
The gift works because it's from God, sir, the eternal, universal, unchanging God who is all powerful and allows us to make certain choices.
I didn't ask why it works. I asked how it works. So
Well, sir,
like if you
you'd
look
have
at
to
it,
ask God about that.
so you can't tell me.
Well, sir, I do know it's a gift from God because it cannot be explained in the physical world. Don't you agree, sir, that chemical reactions happen the same way over and over again?
I agree. Free will doesn't exist without God, obviously.
Great.
So, but I just wanted to ask you how this gift works. You told me that I would have to ask God, so
Yes,
obviously you
it
can't tell
works.
me.
It works from God because God gifted us. Uh, God gifted us free will, the ability to be able to have choices. You know, God's word says that God talking directly to us, talking to mankind, says, "Come, let us reason together. I put before you this day life and death." And God knows we're not the sharpest tools in the shed either. He even gives us the answer. He tells us, choose life. Now, if God wasn't going to allow us to be able to make the choice, why would He tell us to make a choice?
So yeah, I agree with you. What you're saying is true, but I didn't ask you where it comes from. I didn't ask you who gave it to us. I didn't ask you any of these things. I didn't ask you why you have it. I asked you how it works, how the choice
And I
done.
told you, sir, it works because it is a gift straight from the Almighty Creator.
How does the gift? So when someone gives you like a gift, like a
Let me
toy,
ask you
right?
a question, sir. How does the laws of
Batman,
logic work?
don't interrupt me. So when someone gives you like a toy, like a gift horse or whatever, right? And the horse is like a mechanical horse and it runs when you press a button. There's a question of who gave you the horse. It's the person who gifted it to you. But there's also a question of how the horse works. Like if you look at it, how the internal mechanisms work, how the motors work, and so on. So I can ask you who gave you the gift, but I can also ask you how the gift works. So when I ask you who gives you free will, yeah, you can say God. But then I ask you, how does the free will work? Can you explain how the free will works?
Yes, sir. Wouldn't you agree free will is an immaterial part of the physical world?
Questions aren't explanations,
Wouldn't you
Batman.
agree, sir, that again, free will is an immaterial portion of the physical world?
I don't agree that free will exists, so this
Great.
question
Well,
doesn't
okay,
make
let me
sense to
let me
me.
go ahead and point out to you, sir, that free will is an invisible portion of our visible world. It
Batman,
is
I
not
haven't.
material. It is not made up of the physical world. It is immaterial. It is supernatural by its very core. Now, sir, let me ask you a question. Can you show me how the laws of logic work and what they're dependent upon?
Please don't jump to other things. We're talking about
Oh no,
something
sir. It's
specific.
actually the same darn thing. See, you're
No,
asking me a question. I've given you the answer. You don't
no,
like the
Batman,
answer,
no,
sir. So now I'm
Batman.
going to go ahead and
You
ask you.
have
You're
not answered
asking me
my
to
question.
present you
You have
evidence
not
about
answered
the
my question. You've
immaterial
not.
truth of
No,
free will.
I've not.
I'm
You
actually
have not.
presenting you evidence, sir, that if you can show me where the laws of logic come from and how they work, I'll show you how the free will works and where it comes from.
Batman, this is not my burden. Okay, so I asked you how free will works in your
And
worldview,
yes,
not
sir.
in
And
my
I
world.
told you
In
it's a gift from God. You don't like that
no, that
answer.
is not. That
Then
is
you
not
ask
an
me how
answer to
that
my
works, and I
question.
ask you again, sir, how do the laws of logic work? What are they contingent
So
upon?
you see how you've still not answered the question because
I have
the
answered the
question,
question, but you don't like
Batman,
the
I've
answer.
explained to
It
you
is a
very
gift
patiently
straight
that
from God. You
that is
cannot
not an
explain
answer.
it
That is
any
no.
other
It's not that
way.
I don't like the answer, Batman, but I just patiently explained to you how telling me who gave you a gift horse doesn't explain to me how the gift horse works. So please
Yes, sir.
tell
And
me.
wouldn't you agree that the laws of logic are a gift straight from God? How do they work, sir?
Don't jump. to other
How do
things.
the laws
We're
of
talking about
logic
free
work? Since
will. We're
they're a
talking
gift
about
straight from God too,
we're
because
talking about
God
free
has
will.
gifted us the ability
We're
to
talking about
utilize His eternal, universal, and unchanging properties, such as the laws of logic. How do they work, sir?
dude, we're talking about free will, not logic right
Yes,
now.
we
Okay.
are. And you know what? According to you, you cannot have either one because you
No.
don't know what free will is. And now you don't even know what logic is. Because if you cannot identify what free will is, which you can't without the laws of logic, then again, sir, how do the laws of
if
logic work?
you
What are they
if you
contingent
if
upon?
if you at any more points stop talking about free will and start talking about the laws of logic instead, I will stop talking to you, Batman. Okay, so be very
Great, great.
careful.
Would you agree, sir, that free will is dependent upon logic? In order to use your free will, you have to identify your two choices and use the law of non-contradiction to determine which choice you're going to make, or maybe even use the law of excluded middle that says you will either go this way or that. So, sir, where do the laws of logic come from in order for you to use your free will?
In my worldview, free will does not exist. Therefore, you can't
Oh,
ask
does
me
logic exist
about
in your free will world, sir?
this. That's
In the world
this
that
is
you've chosen to say, in the world that you live in, that you've chosen to say that free will does not exist. Does
He
logic exist in that worldview, sir?
he literally
you have jumped
Right.
from
Does
free will
logic
to
exist in
logic.
that
yo
worldview, sir,
Kosi,
of
he
yours, in
can't.
which you've chosen to say that free will does not exist?
Batman, you
Does
have
He
jumped.
logic
literally can't
exist
help
in that free
himself.
will?
He
In
can't
that
help
free will?
himself but talk about
Sir,
logic.
sir, be quiet,
He's
Corey.
like demonstrating that he doesn't have free will because he can't
Bat
help it.
Batman,
Can't
so
help it,
you've
can he, Mr.
jumped.
Batman?
Batman, so you've jumped from free will to logic, which I asked you not to do. So now I
No,
won't talk
sir.
to you anymore.
I'm actually telling you, sir, that if you're not going to be able to justify how you can use your free will by identifying something, be able to use the law of non-contradiction or excluded middle in order to see whether or not you're going to do one thing or the other, then you don't have free will either. Logic is necessary for free will.
Batman, are you able to choose to stay on topic? Because it doesn't seem like you do. It doesn't seem like you have much free will in the matter. You just can't help yourself though. Why? Why is that? Where's your free will at?
You see, free will is a gift straight from the Creator.
Well, then exercise it.
That Creator gave us free will to choose whether we would accept His law and His edicts and His love and His morality, or whether we would reject
That's
it.
great. I don't
And
care.
the truth
Exercise
is
your free
that you
will
know
and
the
stay
God
on
of the Bible
topic.
in the same way that I know the God of the Bible, in that He has revealed Himself to us in a way that you are without excuse. You know God and you reject Him because you want to keep on in your masturbation.
Why are you rejecting this wonderful gift of free will by just acting on a whim, an impulse, right? Why can't you just stick to the debate topic, which was free will, not logic? Why do you always? It's like an addiction. You can't help it. You're kind of demonstrating that you don't even have free will, or you're arguing for free will.
Actually, sir, wouldn't you agree you'd have to identify what free will is in order to talk about it? Yes, I thought you'd understand that little quandary right there. See, that's the law of identity. Anything that you talk about, sir, you have to identify it. That is the eternal, universal, and unchanging law of identity. You have to identify your choices when you're making your free will, exercising your free will, rather. So you have to identify choice A and choice B. And then you're going to use the law of non-contradiction or excluded middle in order to make choices on those identified options. So, sir, since I can prove that you have to use the laws of logic in order to actually commit the action of free will, what is your problem?
What are you talking about? You just have no idea what you're talking about. Why do you think? Why do you think that the laws of logic have anything to
I know
do
that
with
you're a
actually making
liar
a
and the
choice?
truth is not in you.
Come on.
And you, sir, need to repent for rejecting the God that you know.
Why do you think the laws of logic have anything to do with actually making a choice or informing the choice that you make? How does that work?
Yes, sir. Wouldn't you agree when you're exercising your free will, you have to identify your options, choice A or choice B?
Yeah, of course.
Great. That's the law of identity, sir. Where does that law come from?
What do you mean that's the law of identity? What's the law of
Are
identity?
you not familiar with the laws of
No,
logic,
I'm
sir?
asking what
The
in this
eternal,
situation,
universal, and
fucking
unchanging
Mr.
laws of
Batman.
logic.
In this
See, the laws
situation,
of
oh my
logic
God.
are as follows, sir. The law of identity states that A is A. Something is what it is, and we know that
Shut
right
up.
down
That's
to
not what
its
I'm
molecular
asking.
level.
Mr.
Not
Batman,
only
that's
that,
not what I'm
the law of
asking.
identity allows us to make different labeling systems, classes, and subcategories. That is, you can actually identify me as an individual. You can also identify me as a class, a human being. You can also label me as a male human being, and you can get very specific and have subcategories, a fat male human being. You see, sir, that's all because of the law of identity that is required, that you have to have it in order to communicate even with yourself. So once again, sir, where does that eternal, universal, and unchanging law come from?
Thanks for the explanation I didn't ask for. Now answer my question. When you're making a choice between options A and B, how does the law of identity inform which choice to make?
Sir, wouldn't you agree in order to make the choice, you have to identify the options? That law of identity is a requirement in order to even start the process of free will. If you cannot identify your options, you cannot choose. Wouldn't you agree?
What does it have to do with free will? That's a trivial fact of every facet of human thought, right? That's why they're called the laws of thought. So how is this important in a free will debate in a non-trivial manner?
It's a very non-trivial manner, sir, because if you have a portion of your equation that you cannot produce, actually function, then, sir, everything falls apart. My point is this: if you are going to actually commit the action of free will in order to make a choice between option A or option B, you have to be able to identify and define what option A is, identify and define what option B is. Sir, that is knowledge using the laws of logic, non-contradiction, and excluded middle. How do you account for that eternal, universal, and unchanging law?
Are we talking about free will or logic? You just can't help it, can you? You obviously don't
Sir,
have free will. You don't even have free
is
will enough to
dependent
be
upon
able
the
to
laws
stick
of
to a
logic,
topic.
sir. I just demonstrated that.
Do you,
Were you smoking your crack when I was talking again?
are you able to make a simple choice as to stick to a topic? Is that impossible for you?
Crack while I was speaking again?
I don't think you can do it. You obviously just don't have free will. You can't just choose to stay on topic. Like, we're trying to talk about free will, and you cannot help but go to logic.
The topic is free will.
Every time. It's like an addiction for you. You have a problem.
It's easy to point out the fallacy in people's thinking when it rejects the truth of God's word.
It's like you try to talk about free will, and you just can't help it. You just get pulled over to the laws of logic every time without fail. Why is that? Why can't you just
because they're eternal, universal, and unchanging.
You just did it again.
Have to use them.
Well, we're talking about free will.
Right now
word law, dude.
Me, sir. Did you
That's
not
where
know
his
that
file
you are
goes.
using those laws of
Using
logic
the word
in
law
order to communicate
correctly.
right now? Did you know that?
Not hard, man.
I
Okay.
know it's not hard to understand that you're using the eternal, universal, and unchanging laws of logic, which you have no justification
Look,
for.
if you're gonna
Without
invoke,
God, sir, you cannot know where they come from.
invoking the laws of logic doesn't get you any closer to the existence of free will, right? It doesn't make either side more likely. So I don't know what good it does in the debate about free will.
Well, sir, actually, it does makes my side the only option. Because since we know that we need logic in order to commit the action of free will, logic can only be explained by the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible has told us that we have free will. It's a gift straight from him. Case closed. Do you see how easy that was,
So the universe wouldn't exist if we weren't all here to think about it, obviously, right?
I'm sorry, what was that statement, sir?
Silly.
The laws of logic would be consistent with the no free will universe too, so it doesn't help your side whatsoever, is my point.
No, sir. Actually, they would not.
Why not?
Because the laws of logic are required in order to have free will. And again, the laws of logic can only come from the eternal, universal, and unchanging God, which tells us that we have free will. So no such universe that has no free will exists.
Right. So
Doesn't
the laws of logic being required to have free will doesn't mean that free will is required to have the laws of logic, right? So the laws of logic.
In order to have any existence whatsoever, any universe you can conceive of, you have to have the laws of logic. It is a requirement.
Conceive of. That's right.
Not what was my point.
But in your universe, humans have to exist for the universe to exist. Following your logic.
No, sir. That's false.
That way to me, because you're talking about knowns and things like that. Laws that man has discovered. God didn't tell us the laws of logic.
Well, actually, he did, sir. It's in his
No,
word.
we did.
And yes, we did discover
Yeah,
the
which
laws of
Bible was
logic
that? Which
in
one?
other areas. That's quite true. But the fact of the matter is, sir, the
Well,
reason
then
I'm
it makes
talking
your whole
about it in the
argument vacuous. I
terminology
mean, you're
of
dancing
knowns,
around like
and
a chicken
because
on
these
the
laws of
chessboard.
logic, these laws of thought are just that. They are actually abstractions of a mind. And since we know the laws of logic
So is
are
God in
eternal,
itself, I would go ahead and
universal, and
further and say.
unchanging, that we know the mind that these laws come from is eternal,
Man's
universal,
mind
and
is not
unchanging.
eternal.
So, sir, can you point me to an eternal, universal, unchanging
No.
mind that is
Same way you can
loving
point me in
and
the
creative?
direction of
Can
time.
you point me to one of those, sir?
There doesn't the same way you can point me in the direction of time.
Oh, I sure can, sir. Because
Go ahead, you
all
can try.
time had a beginning. Wouldn't you agree that all time, space, and matter had a beginning, sir?
No.
No.
I
Oh, are
wouldn't
you not
agree
familiar
with
with
that.
science? Something
Sorry.
known as the expansion rate of the universe.
Yeah, well, that's all misinterpretations of an intrinsic mechanism, electrical intrinsic mechanism.
Oh,
Check out
sir, are
Halton-
you saying that
check out
we
Halton
haven't
Arp's work on the.
quantified? Are
Check
you
out
saying, sir,
Halton.
that we have not
Check,
quantified
are you going to
the
interrupt me every
expansion
time
rate
I
of the
talk,
universe?
sir?
Not
Sir.
only quantified it,
Sir.
but
Excuse
we
me.
measured it and we know it's
Never mind.
increasing.
You don't want to hear anything. Yeah, we measured it and it's not increasing. That's what the problem is. Oops, not enough expansion. You see redshift, highly redshifted objects connected to highly blue shifted objects. That's a falsification of the hypothesis right there in of itself. Check out Halton Arp's work on intrinsic redshift.
Sir, let me ask you a question. Are you using logic to come to that conclusion?
What do you think?
I think no, sir. Actually, I think you're trying to use logic and you're actually using definitions and things like that. But I don't think you understand the terminology that you're attempting to use. Now, let me ask you a question.
Well,
Sir. Would you agree that when you actually
that's in
make
venereal,
these
isn't it?
claims, would you agree, sir, that when you're making these claims that you're actually identifying the things that you're talking about?
Oh, absolutely.
Great. Where does that eternal, universal, unchanging law of logic come from?
We don't know. And it's safe to say
Actually,
that that's
you cannot
still
say
okay.
we do not know, sir. You can only
Sure.
say you do not know because you
We,
do
as
not know
proponents of
anything.
the theory,
You
I'm
do not know what
suggesting
anybody
we do
else
not know.
knows, sir. So let
I
me go ahead
can
and
say
point
that
something out
as
to you. You
proponents
can
of the
say you
theory
don't
that
know
I'm
that,
suggesting.
but you
and
have no
proposing.
idea what anybody else knows because you have no
Actually,
knowledge.
you're just running around acting overly pompous when you don't realize that you're not even correct. Sad.
Mr. Batman!
Yeah, you just got ran off the map. Anyway, we as proponents of the theory that I'm proposing actually can say we, right? I hate to
How are
correct
you
every time
doing,
I speak.
Mr. Batman? I see you've come back for another round of anal raping. Are you ready for your
Once again,
Boston
sir,
Red Sox, sir?
the fact of the
Yeah,
matter
well,
is
we just
that
fit
the
a plug in
eternal,
right now.
universal, and unchanging laws of
Getting him ripped
logic
up.
cannot be explained without an eternal, universal, and unchanging lawgiver.
Right. Since when do words
abstractions of an
dictate the
eternal,
universe?
universal, and unchanging mind. Can you point me to that eternal, universal, and unchanging
Yeah,
mind?
same way you
sir?
can point me in the direction of time. We just went through
I
this.
did, sir. Because in the
No, you
beginning,
didn't.
God created the heavens and the earth. Since you're not familiar with science,
God
sir, I
created
can
the
actually
heavens and the
point
earth.
you
What
to
are you
the
going backwards in time?
quantification of the expansion rate of the universe, how we know the expansion rate of the universe.
Oh, you know what? Mr. Dawkins must have said something new. This is why Mr. Batman has a slightly new script. Darth Dawkins must be saying something new.
I
Hey,
know.
Mr. Batman,
I
why
know
are
we're
you
only
denying...
arguing. I know we're only arguing with Darkin's persona. Batman, cool.
Mr. Batman, why are you
Sir,
denying
once
God's
again,
ordination?
the
Why are you
laws of
giving God
logic
the
are
finger?
eternal, universal, and unchanging. They cannot be explained without an eternal and universal and unchanging lawgiver. The point of the matter
Hey,
is, sir,
Mr.
you cannot
Batman, is the
justify
law of
these
logic
eternal,
absolute?
universal, and unchanging laws, and you know it. You know the fact that all time,
Absolutely.
space, and matter
Wait.
had a beginning. All time, space,
Mr.
and matter had a
Batman,
beginning.
why does someone
Anything that
need to
has a
justify
beginning
something that's
must
absolute?
have a cause. Now, sir,
Mr. Batman,
if
why
time,
does
space,
someone
and
need
matter
to
had a beginning,
justify
and it's
something that's
quantifiable,
absolute?
we know that it does. What is the cause of time, space, and matter, sir? Let me help you out. That's a timeless,
Mr. Batman, why
spaceless,
does someone need to
immaterial,
justify
all-powerful,
logic?
Like it
all-knowing,
has physical
loving
attributes.
creator God.
That's what they
Any
don't understand.
questions, sir?
What do you think?
How
Space
you
is
doing,
actually a
Mr.
fabric
Goodberries, by the
of
way?
blankie? Good. How about you? Thanks for asking.
I'm doing well. Hey,
Are you
It's been a
drunk?
while. Yeah, it's been a while. I've been coming in for a couple times. I've been quiet though, mainly. I came in yesterday and gave Tasteless a good little ass raping.
hey, Mr. Batman, why does someone need to justify something that is absolute? Is not something that is absolute self-justified, so why would you need to give an account for something that is self-justifying?
Oops.
Oops. See, Mr. Batman, you hold up to a worldview, as well as I do, that logic is an absolute truth, and that absolute truth is a constitutive of the nature of God's aseity. And yet, because it is an absolute truth, everyone has access to that. So why would an atheist need to provide a justification for a self-evident truth? Can you answer that for me, sir? Are you rebooting your computer or running to Darth Dawkins to figure out how to answer that?
This version of
Crickets.
Christian Hillbilly is so unfamiliar to me.
Right? What, silence? Yeah. Crickets. Crickets. Mr. Batman, why do you go against God's divine ordination? Why did you divorce your wife? God ordained you to be with that woman. Why are you giving God the finger? Don't you know that adulterers will not enter the kingdom of heaven? Don't you know that liars will not enter the kingdom of heaven? Repent to perish, Mr. Batman. Repent to perish.
And Batman's an atheist.
Hmm.
He's furiously
Whoa,
flipping
Mr.
through his
Batman is not
playbook.
an atheist. Mr. Batman is a Christian.
Mr. Batman, repent to perish. Repent to perish, Mr. Batman. The truth is not in you. Repent to perish.
Mr. Tanner, in your true state?
Brojo! Saved by grace!
Mr. Batman, I have a question.
Oh god, Brojo left. No, I ran him off. No, I was making some decisions. And while I was making those decisions, I decided that I should make some decisions. Why did you leave, Brojo, with your decision-making abilities?
Mr. Batman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Hey, don't you have to presuppose the validity of your reasoning and the accuracy of your perceptions to have read the Bible and concluded that what's in it is true?
No, sir. As a matter of fact, God has made us known certain things. Those certain things that we know are the eternal, universal, and unchanging laws of logic. These are the attributes of the living God, such as truth, wisdom, and knowledge, because all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge are hidden in Jesus Christ.
Okay, right. But before you read the Bible, you didn't know any of that, right? So at some point, you must have picked up that book. Okay.
So, Mr. Batman, are you claiming, Mr. Batman, that something a priori exists in your capacities? Are you claiming that a priori knowledge is the reason that you can know certain things? Can you give an account, Mr. Batman, for your a priori knowledge?
Well, when he was 6 years old, he actually wrote the entire Bible before ever seeing the Bible. Strangest thing you ever saw.
See, Mr. Batman, you need to give an account for logic. Can you give an account for logic, Mr. Batman? Can you justify God's existence, Mr. Batman? Can you justify your presuppositions, Mr. Batman? Do you have the ability to answer a question, Mr. Batman? Are you simply an addled, brain-damaged, old, fat man, Mr. Batman?
Vaccine damage.
One of my necessary presuppositions in order to function in reality is to presuppose that Mr. Batman's fatness is like an eclipse, right? And the only way that I can know that the sun rises and sets is his belly. What does that mean? Mr. Batman, we made you something. Just for you, Mr. Batman. Just for you. In the main chat.
All right, I'm back.
Hey, Mr. Batman, we made something for you and put it in the main chat. You should check it out.
So, Mr. Batman, I don't understand how you didn't have to rely on your own reasoning and your own perceptions when you first read the Bible in order to kind of obtain a belief about God and Christianity. So didn't you have to presuppose the validity of your own senses and your reasoning?
No, sir, actually it did not, because God makes you know certain things. It's called a priori knowledge. It's called Romans
Told
chapter
you.
1, starting at verse 18.
What did I
For
tell
the
you?
wrath of
Oof.
God is revealed
Oof.
from heaven against all
Oof.
ungodliness and wickedness of men, who by their wickedness suppress the truth.
What did I
Sir,
tell you?
that's called a revelational epistemology. God has shown something to us so we cannot help but know it.
Right.
God gave me a priori knowledge of the fact that homosexuals are superior to heterosexuals. That is revelational knowledge.
Where did you get this a priori knowledge? Because I'm pretty sure it's in the book that you had to read with your eyes and
Well, they call that-
reason
Do you
in
not
mind.
understand a priori knowledge, sir? A priori knowledge is knowledge that you have without gaining it through experience.
No, I understand what it
Knowledge you
means.
have pre-programmed into your psyche from the moment of your conception. Sir,
Okay,
this
then
is
why did
knowledge
you?
of the laws of logic. The
Liar,
laws
dude.
of logic are eternal,
Seriously.
universal, and unchanging, and you know how to use them at the moment of your birth.
Then why did you need to read the Bible if you already had knowledge of it?
Sir, there's two types of revelation. There's general revelation, which all people have, and then there's special revelation, that which is the Bible. General revelation, that of creation and the laws of logic, is only enough to convict you of your sins, because you know that there's a loving creator God that created you, designed you, and gave you laws. You know those laws because he's put them on your heart. You have what's called a conscience. Con means with, science means knowledge. You are with knowledge of what is right and what is wrong, and yet you do at every opportunity what is wrong against the God that you know. Sir, God sends people to hell not for sinning against a God that they don't know or can't know. God sends people to hell for sinning against the God they absolutely know, because God has shown himself to them. In Romans, right after that, it says, for what can be known about God is
Talk
plain
about
to
playing
them
on the
because
psyche. You
God
don't get
has
that?
shown it to them, namely his eternal power, his
You don't get
divine
that fear
nature,
porn?
have been clearly perceived, clearly seen ever since the creation of the world in everything that has been made. Claiming themselves to be wise, they became fools. You have no excuse.
What kind of
Alright,
an
that's
idiot
enough.
would fall for that crap?
That's enough. That's enough. Mr. Batman, stop preaching and answer questions. If you can't stop preaching, you're just gonna stay muted. I can't stand when he preaches. It's so ridiculous.
And his knowledge is a result of his environment for the most part. Whatever a priori knowledge would be, like doggy paddling as a baby underwater. It wouldn't
Well,
reach.
that's
Sir,
that's
did
not
you
a
know
priori
that
knowledge. That's
newborn
a priori
babies
mechanics.
can identify
Yeah,
their
mechanics,
mother
which is knowledge
in
too,
the,
right?
in the delivery room from the moment of their birth. They can actually pick out the mother's voice over other female voices.
No,
in the
they
room.
cannot. That's a lie. That's a lie. You have no way of showing that, Mr. Batman. You have absolutely no way of justifying that whatsoever. A baby, newly born, cannot make any distinction between any of the noises or interpretations around it. In fact, it can only see 2 or 3 inches in front of its face. It learns to identify its mother. It does not have a priori conception of its mother.
Toddlers have inborn
Mr.
adaptive
Tanner, have you
tendencies.
repented of your transvestitism yet? Of being a transvestite? Have you repented of that, sir? Rejecting the law of identity?
Actually, Mr. Batman, actually, Mr. Batman, what I did when you left after I wrecked you the first time was I went and I shaved my legs, and I did my hair, and I am still trying to figure out if I'm wearing guy underwear or girl underwear, because you've never given me the answer of how I can distinguish between the gender qualities of polyester. But don't worry, my legs are just my legs are just absolutely smooth, and they smell like apples.
I still want to know how you knew about God before you knew about God.
Sir, are you really that stupid? Are you really that stupid, sir? Let me say it again. God made you know it. The all-powerful creator of the universe instilled in you perfect knowledge of the God that created you. And as
Not
such,
cellular
sir, you
memory.
cannot help but know it.
He inserted
not
his
cellular
knowledge
memory.
into you, just like he inserted his knowledge into Mary, right? It
So I've
was
been
he
inseminated with
artificially
knowledge.
inseminated.
Yeah, what reason do you have to believe that's true, Mr. Batman? I mean, that's just an assertion. I don't see any argument for that.
So, Mr. Batman, can you disprove the divine revelation of other monotheistic religions?
I'm sorry, sir. Would you repeat? The transvestite spoke over you.
I said, Mr. Batman,
The
can you
transvestite happened.
disprove Can you disprove the divine revelation of other monotheistic religions? Can you do that for us, Mr. Batman? Can you show us why their divine revelation is wrong and your divine revelation is correct? Do you have the ability to do that, Mr. Batman?
I'm sorry, Mr. Coy. Would you mind repeating your last statement? The transvestite spoke over you.
All right. So,
Oh, I
you're
guess the
going back on
fanatic
mute.
didn't hear you. Go ahead and repeat yourself because the fanatic cannot hear you.
Yep, he can't. So, Mr. Batman, can you please, for the room, disprove the other divine revelations of other monotheistic religions? Specifically, I would like you to disprove Jainism.
And also, he's not a transvestite, Mr. Batman. You should learn your definition. Speaking of the law of identity.
Oh, I do know my definition, sir. And he's a man that wants to dress up like a woman. That is the very definition of a transvestite. Sir, transgender is no such thing. There's no such thing as a person who can go from male to female or female to male. You have immutable properties that make you uniquely and exclusively what you are.
You can be arrested
a man
for
has
that in
unique and
Sweden.
exclusive properties that make
'Cause
him
there
exactly
is-
what he is.
I'm just kidding.
Mr. Tanner has all those unique, immutable properties that make him uniquely and exclusively a man. It doesn't matter if he has a mental problem and doesn't want to admit that.
That's
All right.
Mr. Batman. So, Mr. Batman, then, will you please answer my question then? How am I to be able to know the proper gender of polyester? Because this is obviously important. I need to wear male polyester. So how am I to notice the difference between male polyester and female polyester, or male cotton and female cotton? Can you explain that to me in a way that I can understand it? Because this is obviously extremely important. Because I obviously need to be wearing male polyester, but I've never seen anything when I go to buy underwear that says this is made from 100% masculine polyester.
Sorry, Captain. I meant to refer to you as she, but by the way, my bad.
Let's just change the subject because I don't think anybody even wears polyester underwear these days.
He's just wrong about his definition, right? Transvestites derive pleasure from dressing up as the opposite sex. That's different than transgenderism, which Mr. Batman's also gotten wrong, right? Which is where you identify internally as being the opposite sex than you are physically. It's two different things. He just likes to.
Actually,
mincing
sir,
definition.
you have a mental problem. If you don't know what
Under
gender
the law of
you are,
identity?
you have a mental problem, sir. The mental problem has a specific name that's called gender dysphoria. If you engage in dressing up as a woman, you are doing so out of some type of perverted sexual desire. That is a transvestite.
Right,
Because
that's not
there's no
what
such thing.
Kathleen is.
I'm sorry, sir. There's no such thing as a transgender. There's only a transvestite. A person cannot change their immutable properties. Do you not know what immutable properties are, sir?
Transvestites. We should get Mr. Batman to do like a song called Only Transvestites, right? It would be great. But see, Mr. Batman, what you fail to realize is that transgender women are women.
Yeah, let's see your Mr. Batman. Let's see your fucking Google search.
See, Mr. Batman, transgender women don't claim to be women.
Let me check out his.
They are women, right? So when they wear women's clothing, they are not dressing up as women. They are simply
On this
putting
link.
on the clothes that match their gender identity.
But the point is, there's a difference between like deriving pleasure from dressing up as the opposite sex and identifying as the opposite sex. So they're two different things, right? So he's just getting he's just getting his basic
absolutely
definition wrong, right? So he's just using the wrong word.
No, sir.
Yes,
No,
sir.
that's
Yes,
exactly
sir.
the correct word.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As a matter of fact,
Exactly
the only
correct
pleasure,
definition. A
the
definition
only
actually
pleasure
defines
that I
exactly what that
derive
particular thing
from
is.
from
If a
female
man
clothing is
dresses up as
taking
a
them
woman,
off.
Does that ever make them a woman? No, it makes them a transvestite.
Why
Again,
does that bother you?
transvestite
Dude?
is that which tries
Instead
to
of
appear
talking
Well
like a
played,
woman,
Pastor.
be it either on the
Are you
physical
like out
side by
playing the
mutilation
field or
of their
something?
body
Or they
or
keep
using
calling your
clothing.
men?
It
Why are
doesn't
you
matter
mad?
either one.
Mr. Batman,
So
I muted you just then
so
you
mi-
could say something really. Kathleen, sorry.
Yeah.
If we could get back onto talking about free will or the law of identity
That's
or
more
something
women for
instead
the
of just
heteros, right? What are you
drinking
worried about?
berries. Sorry, I just.
Oh, I thought I was muted.
Can
I
we
was
get?
talking to
I just
girl.
want to see
I'm
if we can
sorry.
get the conversation back on
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
sure. I only had
free
one more
will or
comment.
laws of logic or something.
I'll
Yes, as I stated before, there is no such thing as transgender. There is only transvestite, because a transvestite is one who rejects the God-given gift of
Obviously,
being a
we can't
male
get
and
back
tries
on
to dress
topic.
up as a female. Even though they may mutilate their exterior body, that is mutilation. That is a software problem, a mental problem, not a hardware problem. Again, they need to repent and understand that they have a mental issue.
So, Mr. Batman, can you please, in your best ability, tell us why indeterministic libertarian free will goes against your worldview? And please phrase this in a way that is logically coherent.
Repent or perish.
Silence is golden, because Mr. Batman doesn't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
You should call him Mrs. Batman.
Mrs.
Yes,
Batman.
sir. You know, that is
Mrs.
what's called
Batman.
a law
That's
of the
great.
middle,
Oh my
law of logic.
god.
Every person will
Somebody
either
let me
repent
change
before a
his
holy
name.
God or they will perish in eternal hell. If Mr. Tanner continues on this
Eternal
path of
hell, fear
rejecting his
porn.
identity
Get your
that God has
Bibles
given him,
here.
he's going to
Step
hell
right
for
up.
being a
Don't be late because your
transvestite.
age, your weight, or your birthday.
Hey, Mrs. Batman, can you answer the question and tell us why indeterministic libertarian free will is wrong in your worldview?
Please, mademoiselle.
Here, let me counter that claim, Mr. Batman. So if Kathleen continues on her journey, right, and then she dies, all that's gonna happen is her body is gonna decompose into dirt and worms are gonna eat her brain and shit. That's all that's gonna happen. There's no hell.
And how do you know
None of
that,
that.
sir? That's a knowledge claim. How do you know that?
Mr.
You
Batman.
don't know that, sir. That's a guess.
Mr.
That's your
Batman.
hope. That's your hope and desire, sir, that when you die,
Mr. Batman.
that's all you get is to go
I'm sorry,
away into
Mrs.
nothingness.
Batman.
No, sir. There's an eternal
That's the one thing
hell
we
for
do
people
know,
like
Knuckle
you and
Brain.
Mr. Tanner that reject
Mr.
God.
Mrs. Batman.
There's an eternal hell for a place and people like you and Mr. Tanner that reject the God that they know.
Mrs. Batman, can you please answer the question of why indeterministic libertarian free will would be incorrect in your worldview? No? You can't? Okay, didn't think so. So, moving on from Mr. Batman. Anyone else have anything interesting to talk about?
My washing machine's on spin and it's lumping. I don't want to hear that shit.
You know, it's funny. Mr. Batman brought up something about women, or men deriving pleasure from putting on clothing or whatever. And I must say, the only pleasure that I derive from women's clothing is when I take off my bra after about 8 hours, and I'm just like, ah.
Kathleen,
Yeah.
Good.
do you think gender is definitively
See them on the floor finally.
changeable?
Definitively changeable? I'm not really sure what you mean by that.
So as in by definition, gender can be changed?
I don't think gender can be changed in the sense that I think you are either born gender-wise, a male or a female, but I think your body can be incongruent with your actual identity. So while I don't think you can change your gender identity, I do believe you can change your physical characteristics in order to match your
So
gender
you
identity.
do not think that gender is a social construct?
Yeah, in my opinion, it's really something you need to come at as approach more compassionately. It's none of my business personally what somebody else wants to do, whatever. So I mean, as far as me not wanting to be a Nazi, I stay out of it and leave everybody's choices up to themselves about whatever they want to do.
I'm not criticizing Kathleen here, by the way.
Oh no,
Yeah,
I'm talking against Mr. What's his face, Mrs. What's
Mr. Batman.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't.
point.
I don't. I don't know. I mean, I think certain aspects of gender identity are social in nature, especially gender roles. But I do not know if I would go so far as to saying gender as a whole is a totally social construct, kind of like in a simpliciter sense. I don't know if I would go so far as that, because I do think that you do have an innate gender identity that you are born with.
So do you differ from his claim that you are just a man who's mutilated your body?
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
In
absolutely. I mean,
specifically, which ways? Yeah.
I mean, well, so the problem with people like Mr. Batman, right, is that they get just so much wrong about gender dysphoria and gender identity and things like that, because they assert that the external reference points that we have, right, genitals, are what determine our gender identity. But since gender identity is a purely, mental construct, you can't tie the two together. Right now, does gender identity have some kind of biological epigenetic center? Yeah, of course it does. Right, but to assert that the exterior biology is always correct, when we know for beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is the external biology that is secondary. It is the second thing that's for, right? So when you're a baby, when you're a fetus, the first thing that forms is your brain and your heart, right?
So I don't know much about this, so I'm not going to say I agree or disagree with you, but I am just seeing that you two are using different definitions of the word gender. You think it's a
Well,
mental
yeah.
construct, and he think it's set by God.
Well, yeah. I mean, we both purport to be Christians, but Mr. Batman really just has absolutely no understanding of anything he talks about, and gender identity is just one of those things.
Kathleen, we have a question. Is it true that there are neurological differences between like female brains and male brains, and that's what gives rise to gender identity? Have you heard that?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, the way that the male brain communicates with its two hemispheres, as opposed to the way the female brain communicates with its two hemispheres, is diametrically different.
Right. So cool. I read an article that said basically transgender people have something like a female brain inside of a male body. So it's not just like this internal feeling. It's actually there's structural differences in the brain. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, there have been 7 studies that have come out in the last 2 years, large-scale studies that have done multiple different types of tests on transgender people before they begin any kind of hormone regimen, that have shown that the structural differences and distinctions in the transgender brain almost always line up with the identity that they claim they are, as opposed to the identity that they are assigned at birth.
Kathleen,
And
we weren't
yeah.
asking for your pseudoscience, okay?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have any
Yeah,
real science?
let me go call Ken Ham real quick, because that's the only
Thank
real
you.
science.
Thank you. Amen.
But yeah, no, there's yeah, so we are learning more and more every day, and it is almost it is almost, just absolutely conclusive at this point that gender dysphoria and transgenderism is a epigenetic structural thing that happens in the brain during gestation, where the brain forms to one gender and the body forms to another gender. And this is huge, right? Because transgender people have always claimed this, and now we have the science to prove it to be so.
It's cool. Thanks. I was just curious. I was curious because I'd heard that, and then I'd heard some doubt about that, and I was too lazy to go research it myself. So I just wanted to ask you. Thank you.
Hold on one second. I tell you what. Let me find my little. All right. So where is this at? So the big ones that have come out recently are Laura Case from the University of California. She focused specifically on the supramarginal gyrus, which is the section of the brain that determines value connectivity. And this is where this is the part of the brain that most neurologists and neurobiologists agree is where identity is formed. And then Julie Baker from the University of Liège, and also the Belgian University study on neurological brain activity. And they all showed the same thing, that transgender brains are basically identical to the identity they claim they are and function in the way that their identity claims they are. So when I assert I have a female brain, I'm not just saying I feel like a girl. I'm saying that my brain literally functions in a way that is diametrically opposed to the way my external biology reflects.
Did you know there's a bell curve difference between males and females in regards to IQ?
Just as far as the spread.
Yes.
Not
Yeah, I
average.
mean, I know that women as a whole tend to have less IQ difference between them, but they don't have as large a swings. They, on average, a woman's IQ would be slightly higher than a man's, but it's all clustered into one thing where men have much larger swing between them. So
Right.
so the higher IQ people tend to be male because they have that higher swing.
Am I mistaken in saying then if we have a woman born in the future with a male brain, then she's more likely to have a higher IQ than other women?
Yes. Yeah, I would say, yeah, you could make that assumption.
So
But
all
again, it is
characteristics of
bell curve.
a male brain is I don't know, for lack of a better word, like creatable or placeable in a female. Can occur in a female. All the positive characteristics of a male brain, where they excel, can occur in a female body.
I'm sorry, I was momentarily distracted by Michael posting pictures of Christina Ricci.
I don't think it's correct to say that males are more likely more intelligent because of
No, they just have a higher ceiling.
Yeah, they have a higher generalized ceiling
Right,
than
well,
men do.
so the distribution is more spread out, right? So it's the same exact average IQ, but you find males.
No.
No, that's true. It's the exact same average. The bell curve is more spread out, so males are more. Basically, the standard distribution. I mean, the standard deviation is bigger, so you'll find males that are.
I thought the curve for men was slightly higher than the curve for women.
No, I think they're the exact same, but you'll find males that have more extreme scores, so they'll be more extremely intelligent and more extremely stupid. I mean, there'll be individuals that are.
Right. Well, and I also think, though, again, right, because of the differences between men and women's brain, even an extremely high IQ analytical woman, her IQ, the way her IQ functions is going to be different than the way a high IQ male functions.
Of the same IQ?
Yeah. Like if you took a woman that has 150 IQ and a man that has 150 IQ, they may have the same standard IQ, but they are still going to think in two distinct ways because of the way the brain communicates with itself.
Sure, but are they going to do stuff like maths and logic puzzles differently?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they probably would. I think they could both reach the same conclusion, but I think the way that they may come at those things may be different.
I mean, there might be differences in like verbal and mathematical IQ. What's the other scale? Like subscales of IQ, right? Maybe there's differences there. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and I also think there's what is it? What do we call emotional IQ? Kind of.
In capitals.
I don't understand.
Politics server.
What's the interesting claim there, that there is a server that's called the name Politics, or?
No, well, I find it interesting that, I mean, if you guys are trying to like regain that brand, not that.
What's interesting about it?
Yeah.
What is interesting about it? It's a question.
It's interesting.
You said you find it interesting. It's just the nature of it being interesting, or is there something specific?
Are you krilling me right now?
No. Listen, what he's trying to say is listen. there are multiple servers, right, that are Overwatch servers called Overwatch or LOL that share identical names, right, and almost identical format, and I've never seen pushback against them. It seems to be that the pushback from one of the politics servers, I can't tell right which one, is it SAS that's doing it? Seems to be something more personal, right? So it seems to be SAS is leading a charge on a personal attack with something that's happened to him in a mod here, an admin or something. I don't
know anything about that. I don't know anything about that. If it seems that I'm like some kind of insider on that, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. I'm just wondering.
Well, no, I'm just letting you know what this has become recently, right? It seems to be it's only seemed to gain attention when it's happened to this server, a relatively large server that people know, rebranded to a name it had originally, right? From a community that was a politics community, from another format, right, that was lost. So it's not, for us, it feels normal, right? It's always been that. So it's I suppose looking from the outside, it's hard to say. I find it kind of really weak as well that someone thinks that somehow that one server should only be about politics and have the name politics. I'm not quite sure that really. I'm not really sure.
I don't care what's discussed on the server. I don't actually care what you rename the server as at all. I would just find it interesting that there is this kind of competition for this particular capitalized politics server.
No, but
what do you mean a competition? What does that mean?
There's a competition.
How do you compete for a
multiple
name?
people trying to acquire the most, what's the word, quintessential brand, right?
Do you think a concept is you think it's a brand?
Well, no, I'm arguing that it's not really a concept anymore.
You said that it's interesting that there's multiple people competing for the word politics, but as far as I understand, in order to get the word politics, you just make that the name of your server. It requires zero competition, zero approval from anyone else, just something that you do.
Yeah, sure, formally it doesn't require any competition. But it's already been said that, I mean, Krellman already said that you guys were the original politics, right? And that SAS somehow stole that name from you, and then you rebranded, right? So there is some kind of specific...
He just created another server with name and copied everything that we were doing on the server. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I'm just saying, if you want to know where these ideas came from, we came up with these ideas on this server.
Yeah, it's like saying you stole the idea for a wheel, right? It's always existed, right? Now you could argue that the wheel is you know what I mean? That's out there in the ether, right? Now you can go to who invented the first car, right? Certainly who invented the first bike. But the idea of someone using the wheel isn't interesting, right? And I think you're getting too caught up on the
Wait, hold on. I was
politics.
just hold on. I was just wondering because I wanted to see if there was some kind of like feud or ill.
There's no feud on our end, but now SAS is going around saying that we're spreading viruses and all this other stuff. He's making up lies in order to get people to not even come over and see what we're doing.
Yeah, I was actually one of the people that worked on the bot for SAS to gain the false numbers that he had. I was actually paid in kind for doing that, and I can go through that at any time anyone wants.
Okay. Just to let you know, again, I didn't know any of this. This is complete news to me. I was just wondering.
SAS is willing to lie about people in here, right, to cover himself. There's a very slanderous image going around that SAS has said some very nasty things about particular users and the users in here. They've actually had a targeted campaign against people in here and their related servers, right? In which if you're a member of the server, you're guilty by association, and people have promoted to banners from other servers. Just
he paid people to come in here and post child porn and then reported it to try to get the server shut down.
You might actually
get disgusting.
Banned. Calypso, you might get banned from any server that SAS has sway on just by being in here now.
Oh yeah, no, I've been there already.
Well, you may be banned. It depends because there are spies in here now.
I don't actually spend much time on politics, really. I just Just wondering to see what's going on with that, because I understand that there's been a rift between the original, what I thought was the original one, and now there is the red one and the blue one, and now we have purple. So
there's orange, blue, purple, and red. There's 4.
There's probably going to be more by the end of the week, Cliff. So if it keeps on going this way, once you liberate the word politics, right? Once you liberate that, you can't put it back in, right? SAS no longer has control over a single word, right? And a format of talking about it, right? It's not possible. Now that's what he's worried about. He's worried about his experience that he's providing, whatever that is, being so watered down that he has to make up lies about people. That's the sort of person that he is, right?
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that all the good members here that have stuck by and we've known for years are just probably going to be collateral damage to some maniac that is so worried about keeping false numbers that he bought it up high in a server that is practically irrelevant apart from one user, that he's willing to hurt other people that have nothing to do with it. And it's a real shame. If only you knew, buddy, it's people aren't nice online.
Yeah.
Intentionally, right? Like I've
Yeah, but
answered
they're
questions.
purposefully easy.
Well, no, I'm not talking about like the little ones that someone would post on Facebook. You can go to the hi. You can go to the what is it? What's the standard one?
Mensa.
No, not the Mensa. No, not the Mensa. Mensa's not the standard one. It's the
Isn't Mensa the standard?
The WAIS, WAIS, right? Wexler Adult Intelligence Scale. What are you talking about? I don't know why you'd say 86% isn't a lot. That's a lot.
It's the Stanford Bennett test is the standard one. The Stanford Bennett IQ test.
Benet. He was French.
Bennett, yeah. That's the standard IQ test. Is Stanford Bennett. That's the one that if you can get it administered, it's not the Mensa test.
I think there's another one called the Wexler Adult Intelligence Scale that's pretty standard too. I kind of feel like the Stanford Benet is a little bit outmoded. I'm not really sure.
Well, but the thing though is IQ can change, right? I mean, IQ is just basically a measurement of your ability to solve problems and make observations. So you can train yourself to do better in problem solving and observational skills, and you will do better on an IQ test.
For sure, I think it's within a range, but I think for the most part, like that range is well defined by your genetics, unless you're malnourished as a child, in which case it'll make it much worse. You start with the brain basically, but it's like they have this heritability characteristic that they give, which basically means how much of how does it work? When you're young, your heritability is a lot lower because a lot less of your intelligence is attributable to genetics because of things like environmental factors that can really fuck it up. Once you get older, that heritability gets a lot higher because it's basically set in stone by that point. Like unless you get into like a severe car accident and get severe brain damage, your IQ is pretty much what it's going to be until you die. I mean, but there's like different types of IQ. There's crystallized intelligence and there's fluid intelligence, right? And there's different patterns for those over the lifetime. So like crystallized intelligence is basically accumulated knowledge, which will obviously increase over the lifetime. And then there's fluid intelligence, which is, from what I understand, pretty much what IQ tests are getting at, which is like novel problem solving ability. And that peaks when you're like 20, around 21, around there, 18, 21, 22, and then it starts to decline until you get older. So we're all just getting dumber every day. It's great.
Well, and I also think again, like there's a distinction between intelligence quotients, right? Because like, so for instance, I think artists have, you know, some of these world renowned, like the Picassos and the Monets, right? I think they were incredibly intelligent, but they weren't mechanically intelligent, right? Like they weren't like theoretical physicists, but I would probably say that their IQ was on the same level. It's just that they functioned in two completely distinct ways.
Wait, why? Why was it so distinct to you?
Well, I think it's just too like they see the world in very different ways. I think Picasso sees the world extremely different from the way Einstein would have seen the world. But I think probably Picasso and Einstein were just as intelligent. I would, you know, I think Picasso was an extremely intelligent person, but he just saw the world in a different way. He wasn't a theorist. He was an artist.
I think it's a really interesting question. I don't feel like intelligence tests capture the kind of ability that creativity is doing. Although I tend to agree that people that are really creative, like really awesome filmmakers or musicians, are really intelligent in some sense. I just don't know if it's the same sense that like Einstein was intelligent.
Well, that's why it's so hard to measure intelligence, though, right? Because, like, when we think about IQ, we just think again problem solving. Like, these people are super intelligent because they can do theoretical math and things like that. Oh, they're just so smart. But I think that other people can be equally as smart and intelligent and just apply that differently.
Well, it depends on what you think creativity is and how it contrasts from intelligence.
Well, I think creativity is a part of intelligence, but I think that we all have different types of intelligence.
But
I
then,
think,
so for
again,
example, would you say if someone has a high fluid intelligence, they would be more likely to have a high creativity?
I don't know what fluid intelligence is. I don't know.
All that is just like processing power on a PC.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think they try to measure creativity with divergent. It's called divergent thinking, and they had a test for it where they basically were like, so give someone an object, a household object, and see how many different uses they can come up with it in a short period of time. I think that was like one famous test they used to try to measure creativity, like, you know, using tests.
The problem is if they don't want to,
I'll be right back.
You get a low score.
Wait, what?
If they don't want to create something, then you get a low score.
Well, yeah, but yeah. Why would you not want to create something?
Well, why would you want to have many uses for a household object? You wouldn't really apply yourself to that, even if it's for a test. But if you believed passionately in something like art, then you would do everything you can to make it good.
Well, I think this is like college's attempt at trying to come up with some kind of test for creativity. And I think divergent thinking is one way that they did that, and that was one test they did to measure the divergent thinking. And I mean, I think the assumption would be that if you're taking a test, most people at least are going to try, basically, right? Yeah, you'll get some noise where people won't try, but like most people who take it. The only question is then, is that actually measuring creativity, or does it have anything to do with creativity? And I don't know.
That would be my question, yeah.
I mean, that's like always a question in psychology, though, with tests like this, is how well are you actually measuring what you're intending to measure?
So do you think creativity is just divergent thinking?
I mean, it might be
like a lack of obedience.
No, I wouldn't say it's anything to do with like obedience or like agreeableness, essentially, right? It might be like a part of it or something that's correlated with it. You know, you could try to make correlations at least, like say people that are higher in divergent thinking ability tend to be more creative.
Would you say
So there must be
people
some
who are
connection.
not creative have habits of thoughts and would not consider other options? So what they do is rule things out.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. Like, so with the divergent thinking task, you'd be like, okay, how many different uses can you think of for a tag on the wall that's used to hang a poster or some shit like that? I can't remember how they did it.
A million.
Right, but I forget how they constrain it so that you can't just think of anything. It's I could get a link real quick. Hold on.
Well, once you melt down the metal, then you can reshape it, and with miniaturization and the technology nowadays, you could probably make it into computer chips.
Totally, dude. You won, dude. You got it. That's good.
I know, but it's like that doesn't mean I'm creative, though.
I was kind of creative, actually.
I don't know if
you'll,
it is.
the point is that you'll get differences in the population, right? People will think of more or less things to do with it. So that should reflect something. The question is what?
Well, the point is, once I broke it down, there's an infinite amount of reapplications of it.
But yeah, but I'm saying they'd probably give you constraints in the scenarios that you couldn't melt it down. You couldn't, like, you're in a room with it physically. What can you do with it? You don't have something that melts metal, right? You don't have that kind of flexibility. You're constrained more than that.
I can use it as a tightrope for ants.
That's pretty good.
I think it's inexhaustible. Is my point.
Yeah, that could be the case. Now, Coasty.
Uh-oh.
Thanks, Tasteless.
Coasty. Can you speak? Well, never mind.
What are you gonna say, Tasteless? Are you gonna tell us about existence or what?
No, we were going to talk about free will.
Whether or not there's a sun independent of needs.
Yeah, this is them.
Oh, what's up, Tasteless? Ready to wreck some more scrubs?
This is a motherfucker. Oh, John.
Motherfucking hey, son.
Oh, you cannot say that that's a great song. Dude.
Yeah, it's a badass song, dude. Great choice. I love the teaser you did for your mermaid debate. That was dope.
Oh, you like it?
Yeah, you put you just slapping someone for 20 seconds, and then it's just like click here to watch the full video. Just get their
That wasn't the case at
saliva
all,
glands
motherfucker.
going, you know.
That wasn't at all, dude. The fuck?
You didn't think you were wrecking them when you're like, how do you know that? This was worthless. You guys are worthless. This conversation was shit.
Yeah, it exhibits the the shit of the debate. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you
Sorry,
think you
I
won?
apologize.
Do you think you did a good job, Tasteless?
No,
Me too.
me neither.
Ooh, now you have an argument on your hands.
I think either one's fine.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's fine, Kosi. So, Tomer, how are you, dude?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. So, is Justin, allowed here?
It's not something we're gonna really discuss, Tasteless. Sorry.
Did you fall out with Justin?
Why?
When I was last here, he was allowed here. Somebody tell me the news.
Yeah,
I'll tell you why I have Tasteless, but after that, I don't want any further questions on it, okay? Do you agree to that?
Are you asking me?
All right, never mind. Tasteless.
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't know if he is allowed here or is he not allowed?
He was here earlier today. I'm pretty sure he's allowed here.
Oh, that's fine.
What happened to John John?
He's like doing kickflips and shit.
Orson, what should we do? Just like run through the list of people that you haven't seen in here in the last hour that you remember, and just give you a breakdown of what they've been doing for the period of weeks you've been away. Is that?
Yeah, we could.
Do we
yeah,
do
we
that
could
for,
do that. Yeah, we
do
could
that
do
for a
that.
couple of fucking hours to satiate your desire to fucking.
Yeah, or we could sit in silence if you really want to.
No.
That's fine with me.
I mean, it would be better.
Okay.
Well, at the risk of rehashing last night's debate,
Well. Silence is better.
Oh, Gabe is cute, dude.
me talking is better than silence.
Well, I thought that too, but I was wrong.
Jesus, I have a bone to pick with you, man.
What's going on now?
People are being gay, dude.
I have a bone to pick with you, Tasteless.
Oh, you have a bone. I thought it was a boner. Okay. Yeah, man. Tell me.
Oh, that's one of
What is
Tasteless'
it?
favorite thing. He loves picking big bad bones.
What's up, Koi? What's the bone you want to discuss with me?
Well, we might rehash last night's debate about mermaids, but I'm really frustrated that like your debate behavior, man. So like Tomer gave you, 3 reasons, and you just didn't respond to any of them. You just sidestepped the whole thing, man. Look, if you're in a debate and you know you're in a debate, you know that each side is presenting a position, right? So if one side presents a positive argument, you have the burden of rejoinder, right? So you need to at least pick one and take it down and show why it's not a good argument. And you never did that. I don't understand what you think debate is, but that's what you should have done. And I think that's why Tomer was getting so frustrated. And I was frustrated because
Tomer doesn't get frustrated, dude.
whatever, maybe not, but other people do. And I think that's what's to be expected in a debate, is that if someone presents an argument, the other person's job is to say, that's not a good argument because of X, Y, and Z, right? Not to just present like an entirely different case that doesn't directly address what's been said. Why? I don't understand what you thought debate is. What do you think debate is?
So you didn't think, my position addressed his claims?
No, I don't think he directly took down any one of his claims. I mean, maybe at one point he started to address one of his points, but it was kind of like in an indirect manner. I don't know. It took a long fucking time, right? And I don't think it was like, it was almost accidental. I just don't understand why it could have been a more efficient debate. It should have been more efficient, is what I think.
I understand. I'm sorry it didn't fulfill your expectations, my man. Well, listen. But the way I see it, dude, is that he's making his case, right? And why mermaids exist. And I have a position. That is my position is it doesn't necessitate Tomer's position to exist. So I make my claim also in my position known about how I see these things. And then we got into actually, analyzing the claims Tomer is making. And, the significance of it all, right? Perhaps you would like a ping pong debate, right? And I'm sorry, I didn't do that, man, but I will try in the future, Koi, to do this in the way you like it.
Never mind me, dude. I think this is how debate goes, and it turned into a ping pong debate because you weren't actually addressing his claims. And what it turned into was you just assuming your position without argumentation when he said,
no, my friend.
Yeah, no. You need to
I
agree on the
understand.
term of ping pong debate because you both use different definitions there.
No. I'm making my position, right? And the reasons I think, or what we need to take into consideration in order for us to achieve a certain conclusion. This is my position, right? And I'm ready to defend my position. It is, I mean, Koi, I understand that you can say, well, one modality can be Tomer says something and I am against what he's saying, and I'm going to prove him wrong. That to you would mean that I'm right, but that is not the case, at least in my view. So in my view, I have to present my case and argue for my case in order for me to be correct. And of course, Tomer's claim is going to be as persuasive and as good as his argumentation. It is not necessary, in my view, for me to attack, his position like you want me to, like giving credit to, his claims and saying, well, this not, it is not because of this and that, using the same, let's say, field of assumptions, which is rationality. Now, I don't think that is necessary, right? But according to you, it is. And I know that you're saying that you were expecting to see that. That's fine. But I don't agree with you.
How are you going to make any progress in a discussion if you aren't following a single line of thought that's occurring, right? So Tomer gave you 3 options to choose from at least. You didn't choose any of them, and then you ended up just talking past each other. So like informal debate, right? If someone presents an idea and it doesn't get knocked down, that's basically a point for that side, right? So the idea is to knock down as many of the opposition's arguments as you can. And I don't know why the rules would change just because there's not a moderator here. Like just because this is informal debate, it's the same idea, right? You're both presenting arguments, right? So if Tomer goes first, well then, and he's affirming some position, right? He has a burden of proof. He presents some argument for each point that he makes. Then you have what's called the burden of rejoinder, where if you don't respond to those points, that's not good for you. Like you lose points or Tomer gains points or something like that, right?
So are you saying that is the only way to go, Koi, in a debate?
I don't know what a debate would be otherwise.
Well, I mean, like, look, if you hit a home run and then you just run into the stands, is it the only way you can go to run around the bases and then like go to home and then score a point?
That's disanalogous.
Tasteless. No, you can run into the stands and take your shirt off and like do a helicopter with your dick, right? But that's not going to get you any fucking points.
Well, listen. That is not up to you to decide, right? It is, the public's opinion. No, listen, Tomer. It is the people who are listening to this exchange that will validate whether, your position is more persuasive or more correct than my position. So if I decide to go and attack, your position, that is fine. That is one way I can choose to do it. And I can also choose to present my case, right? A different case, talking about the same thing, but from a different perspective. Now, the audience is the one who's going to decide, which position is more likely or which position is better. It is not up to you to define, what points are being made or not. I mean, this is my appreciation. Perhaps I'm wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Oh, am I?
Yes.
Oh, I see. And then who is scoring? Who is scoring? Hey, Koi, who is scoring this shit that is happening?
No one's scoring it, right? So you're not going to be you're not going to mind read the audience of everyone who's around. So it's irrelevant.
Whoa. Who is scoring this shit? Don't tell me no one. Don't tell me no one. Who is scoring? Who is keeping the score?
I don't know. No one's scoring, right? There's
no one. Oh, no one.
No, I don't know. Who was
Well, I think you're wrong, dude.
Who was scorekeeping? What do you mean? Who was keeping
I think the people who are listening to this exchange, Koi, they are, counting this shit. So if you make a bad, if your presentation is bad and people are not, persuaded or convinced or interested in what you're saying, or they see it as dumb or whatnot, that is going to affect you. So the people who is, making the count is the people listening to the debate. So I don't know why you'd be saying that your preference is the one that should count for this kinds of interactions, dude.
It's a convention. This is conventionally how debates are run, right? So the entire point of a debate is to exchange ideas and see which ones have more merit or not. And what you're saying is that you're essentially just both presenting ideas in parallel without any interaction between the ideas, almost in a sense. So who gives a shit? It's not interesting for anyone to listen to if you're both just talking past each other. Tomer was trying to engage you and trying to get you to engage his ideas that he put forward, right? Which you could have decided beforehand, right? You could have decided that you wanted to go first. And by the way, Tomer did ask you if you had any evidence for the non-existence of mermaids, and you just balked. You said, I don't have an answer. I'm pretty sure you said that. So why doesn't Tomer go, right? So he gave you that opportunity, right? So all that was on the table was Tomer's 3 points. And
oh, really? And you think I didn't address those points?
No, I don't. I think you arbitrarily just constrained evidence to mean empirical evidence when he was giving you testimonial evidence, but you just chose because I don't know, you didn't want to. That wasn't.
Were you here for the entire debate?
Pretty much.
Really? So how can you make the claim that I didn't address his point?
How is saying that? Well, all he said was basically that's not a point because it's not my kind of evidence. That's
No.
really
okay, can you repeat the points Tomer made? That was on the table, that there were on the table.
Why? Sure. I mean, I'll try. He basically said anecdotal evidence from people that claim to have seen mermaids. The fact that we've explored only 5% of the oceans at this point. What was the third one? Archetypal stories, right?
What? Okay. I don't think so. He wasn't talking about archetypal stories.
Or mythology, right?
The what?
I don't remember the third one, but what difference does it make, honestly?
Okay, so let me remind you what I responded to Tomer's, arguments or claims. Whenever he was talking about the, people making these claims, I already told Tomer, and since we were talking about possibilities, I asked Tomer what was more likely to be the case, that these people, perception was erred, and since we don't have any consistent, sights of these creatures, that it is more likely for these people to, have a misperception of reality and then conclude it in the wrong way. That is more likely, actually, than these beings existing. Second of all, when he was talking about the exploration, about, yes, I already told Tomer also that we have more exploration right now with more technology, and we don't have any sightings of these creatures. So we have more, covered more ground, and these creatures do not appear. So those were my counter arguments to his positions. And I made this yesterday. How the fuck are you saying that I didn't address them?
Well, I guess I would address them actually. However, his claim
that was after many attempts.
Yeah.
No, that was after stating my position, my personal position. It was attacking his position, but once I first made my position known, for me to defend my position as well. So to me, yes, he made his case, I made my case or my position, and then we started talking about these issues, right? And that's it, man. I don't understand what you're saying, that I didn't address anything.
Okay, so one, it took a really long time for you to get to that point, right?
Oh, so now I'm moving the goalpost. First it was that I didn't address them, now that I took so long.
Well,
fuck you, Koi.
Okay. All right, like I said originally, efficiency would have been nice, right?
So now efficiency is your cookie. Okay, that's fine. Dude.
Well, yeah, the debate, the first half an hour, was you vying for empirical evidence over testimonial evidence without really giving an argument. You just wouldn't accept Tomer's evidence, right? And then you just argued about that for a while. That's not very efficient, right? And it's not very fun for anyone to listen to. So
so you didn't have fun.
No, it was not. It's not entertaining. And granted, it's my choice to be here. Blah blah.
Okay, I'm gonna try to be more entertaining next time.
No, the third one was that I made a comparison to species that we thought didn't exist, like the giant squid. Up until only like a decade ago, we thought they didn't exist, and they actually do. So The mermaids
perhaps,
could be this.
yeah, perhaps I didn't address that point. But if you want me, I can address it right now, Tomer.
Yeah,
Come on, Tasteless. Come on, we really have to discuss this. Can't you just admit mermaids are real?
so,
He's
so
resisting.
yeah. I mean, they might be real, of course. They exist as a concept, right? However, Tomer, one thing that I would think, we can, analyze one particular perspective we can choose to analyze this shit is from evolutionary, biology, right? So, whenever you are presenting a creature such as mermaids with the body of a human and the tail of a fucking whatever, we can analyze that from this field, and it doesn't make any sense. There are no there are no fucking advantages, let's say, or reasons for that to happen. So whenever we're talking, let's say, for instance, of deep sea creatures, right? These creatures, we have creatures that create light, which is very suiting for the environment. They through chemical processes, they are able to, create this luminance coming from their body, which is something that, if someone said, hey man, down there is a creature who is, has light and whatnot. Yeah, it makes sense. It is coherent with the needs of the environment. And yeah, it is yes, it is reasonable, right? However, a creature that it is just a mix of fucking, a woman and a fish.
Mermen exists too. Come on, let's not pretend like feigning rooms here. Come on.
No, we're talking about mermaids, right?
Mermaids is a species.
Yeah, but mermaids, they are female. Now, if they are human, they would need a fucking uterus to be fucked or be, to reproduce. However,
Well, hold on, Tasteless.
What?
It sounds like you're saying that you're saying that you can't think of an ad hoc reason how being a mermaid would be an advantage, give something advantageous, right? So you gave the example.
Exactly.
You can't see how this came out. Well, surely being a mermaid would be advantageous for calling the men to the rocks in their ships, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's an advantage. Being a mermaid.
Look, if you were a humanoid that who.
Oh, you mean to eat them or to fuck them, Dave?
Look, if you're a humanoid who resides in the sea, it's gonna be pretty fucking beneficial to have fucking little fish legs.
What do you mean?
What?
I didn't understand what you said.
Are you saying that being a mermaid wouldn't be beneficial?
Well, unless they're like Gabe is saying, like it is like a bait, to eat humans because they consume human, meat. Well, that could be the case,
We
right?
could think of all
However,
sorts of reasons. The reasons, but what I'm saying is what makes look. Just because you're saying that I can't think of any, but we already have. We could think of a dozen reasons, right? But I don't know what your point is saying that you can't think of how it would be advantageous.
Oh, because our
biology
biology is basically the result of adaptation to the environment, especially to the environment. Now, if mermaids, the environment of mermaids is the fucking sea, yes, I could see why as a fish you need a fucking tail for you to swim and whatnot.
There you go. Okay, you agree.
Yeah, the fish part, of course. But having tits and having a humanoid form, it is not suiting for the environment.
Fuck.
Suiting for their environment.
Because they
So
want to
that contravenes, the conceptualization of this biological creature.
I think I know what you're getting at, but I don't think you're getting at it in the right way, because the advantage of having a female pair of tits is that the sailors go towards the rocks and crash. The sailors don't want to fuck fish, they want to fuck women, right? So if you got a pair of tits, hot little upper body, whatever, you got a nice singing voice, you go towards the rocks, right?
However, Gabe, it must, it must be the case that these creatures have, interacted with humans long enough for them to, let's say, to emulate the biology of humans. And that is not the case, my friend.
Are you saying genetically it's just not possible?
Yeah, genetically, it's not possible for an animal to, mimic another, living organism that it is different from its environment.
Well, that's
it is
interesting, Tasteless.
impossible.
Maybe there was
What do
like
you mean?
a common ancestor. Like, do you think you should ask Tom whether he thinks that mermaids and humans share a common ancestor, or whether they're evolved from more fish-like or more human-like ancestors?
You should ask that, but what
Ask
he
them about
said
the
is false
ontology of
anyway.
mermaids.
Yeah,
That'd
and
be great.
really quickly, Tasteless, you might want to be careful when you're dealing with this, is because we see multiple species and examples that have completely unrelated but convergent traits, right? For example, bats and birds both have wings.
What?
But bats and birds both have wings.
What? Bats and what?
Bats and birds. Birds.
Bats and birds.
Bats and birds, right? Now,
Yeah.
you would say that they're not. Look, at some point in the chain, they're related, right? But the likelihood is that they've diverged, and these convergent traits that have emerged, right, of having wings, are they're separate, but they're similar, right?
Oh, no, don't get me wrong, Gabe. I'm sure there are plenty, species in the ocean that are different, and they also share some traits, right? As different types of, tails and these things, right? However, dude, we're talking about the same environment, in the end. Bats and birds, they share, their type of environment. And yes, they are different in some way. I mean, both can fly, but their wings are different, right? No, we're talking about emulation and mimicking, particular, let's say, physical.
Well, that happens all the time too, though.
Yeah, whenever you are interacting with a particular in your surroundings, but I don't think it happens.
Okay, so Tasteless, I see what you mean. Hold on. So Tasteless, you're saying, like, if you could see a fish that, okay, right, so you're saying that bats and birds, right, they both live on the land, right? You know what I mean? They're in similar environments. You can see that happening, but you wouldn't see a fish with wings, right? That's what you're kind of saying.
No, of course not. That's not what I'm saying, dude. Listen.
From flying fish.
The fish that fly, yes, they don't fly. They fucking jump from the water using their fucking
Well,
wings.
it's just similar, right? It doesn't have to be exact. It just has to be similar, right? We don't have to go for, you know what I mean?
But they have wings.
The needs, yes. In that case, we can safely say that the needs of those fish to get out of the water like that, contributed with their fucking evolution into this, final form.
Right, and the fish that had the bodies like females were able to get onto the rocks and lure the fishermen there with their beautiful voices. It was more advantageous, like the flying fish that, you know what I mean, in tandem.
So if they have teats, dude, that means that they are mammals, right? And they feed their kids.
No,
that doesn't follow.
Oh, really?
It could be purely like emulated like body parts just for the purpose of attracting like prey or something.
Yeah, okay, attracting prey. Okay, let's say that their listen, their survival depends on them attracting our species, right? I'm sure
there's many explanations as to why some sort of organ would have the present as something that it's not.
Yeah, but let's say that is a bait, right? And their survival depends on them being able to bait humans because they consume this, human.
Is somebody doing the search now for other fish that emulate titties?
What?
I'm sure there's examples.
Yeah. So the idea, dude, is that if their survival depends on them, being able to eat humans, then by now it is sure, that we we'd have a bigger rate of sightings, at least, from these creatures. Or that they came close to the coasts where there are people there. I mean, if that was the case, right?
Not necessarily.
What do you mean?
Well, I'm guessing that they wouldn't exclusively eat people, for one thing.
Well, then why the biology?
What do you mean, why the biology?
Yeah. Let's say, for instance, in the case of, there are bugs, right, who they seem like a tree, and this is their primal, tactic for survival, to be able to either, not be eaten, or to create bait for another animal, to eat another animal. So this, strategies nature utilizes to, persist. It is what determines, different aspects of biology and the physicality.
Do you think they would have to feed only exclusively on humans for that to happen? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I would say so.
Oh my god, dude.
Well, not that they are feeding, but their relationship with humans, it is a close one. Necessarily, dude. I mean, what? Give me other reason why they would have this.
All you're citing is that the reports are not as frequent as they used to be.
I'm sorry, what?
All you're saying is that the reports are not as frequent as they used to be. Sure, we have far fewer reports of mermaids now than we have in the past.
Do we?
Right?
I'm not sure about that, JJ. I think we have more.
I thought that's
reports.
what you were claiming.
No,
I was just granting that for you.
Well, no. And I also said that there are many people. Listen,
I thought you said we would have more reports.
But do you agree that, people reporting, these sightings, it is more likely that people are just trying to create something special, in order for them to gain fame or to perpetuate this,
Look, appeal to motive. Look, Tasteless, look at the chat. Now, this cave painting was found along coastlines and shipping routes that existed all over the world. Now, this depiction of mermaids, right? The exact same mermaid was depicted, and in cultures that were geographically isolated from each other. There's no way that they could have collaborated and said, we're gonna all have this same depiction of mermaids.
Oh,
how do you explain that?
Mermaids? What mermaids? I don't know.
You got this.
I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Is it the pictures you posted?
Well, of course it is. What are you talking about?
That is a fucking pig. What the fuck are you talking about? What
are you
mermaid?
talking about?
What mermaid?
Mermaid depicted on this painting. Oh, look.
Where is the fucking mermaid?
What?
Where is the mermaid?
It's above his head. You're looking at the pig? Dude.
Yes. What the fuck?
Above his head, retard.
Above the head?
Look, never mind that.
I don't see any fucking mermaid, dude.
Maybe you have your brightness turned down too low and it's kind of dark there. Look, it's obviously there. Look, explain how this picture of mermaids could have been found all over the world.
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, I don't see anything.
I agree there.
Do you have another? Do you have another one of this plenty?
Look, they're all over the internet, man. Just go look it up.
Well, you are the one presenting those. I thought you.
I did present it. It's not my job to
presented
provide
a fucking picture of a fucking. Well, not a picture, but a drawing of a fucking pig, and a bad one.
I don't know why you're looking at the pig. Just
okay. What does a pig has to do with a fucking mermaid?
Nothing. Okay, it's just you're
so
looking.
Why is the pig there?
I don't know why the pig is there. Look. You're looking at the wrong part of the picture.
Okay, there are plenty of explanations for
right.
you know, all these
Just the
types of.
argument, instead of nitpicking.
No, Tomer, why do you assume that this? Let me ask you something, dude. Now, and this is very serious. Why do you assume that the, let's say, the pictures and the sculptures and sculptures and whatnot, are you know, speaking or talking about what people saw or people believed or people? Why would you do that, man? I mean, is it more likely that these pictures, drawings, or sculptures and whatnot are more like, you know, today, whenever we create things, like for movies and whatnot? I mean, could you imagine if a future generation saw a fucking, you know, poster of Star Wars? They would say, "Oh man, look!" I mean, they obviously interacted with fucking aliens and whatnot, right? And they use laser and they had this technology and whatnot. I mean, this is absurd, dude. Just because that fucking poster, you know, is there doesn't mean that we believe that or that it is a product of our reality.
But it's possible.
It is so unlikely that I would say it
How
is
are
not
you
possible.
judging the likelihood?
Well, the
That's the
likelihood.
part where you show your work. Tasteless is going to be the fun part.
What?
Don't you think likeliness is related to probability?
Likely, yeah, of course.
You think you assess probability with like numbers?
Yeah, of course.
So what are the numbers you're using?
Qualitatively.
Yeah, so what are your qualitative values?
Well, the qualitative values. Well, listen, man. Whenever you, like I
You
said,
have no numbers. You have nothing.
no. Let me
You're
tell you.
denying a cave painting that's fucking explicit in nature.
Yes, but you're assuming that fucking painting.
Now, if you'll
you know,
notice
is
in the cave painting,
what they believed or what they saw.
Each one of the paintings has a man, right, that is pointing to what appears to be a constellation. Now, all of the cave paintings have this same constellation, right? Now, are you aware that you can use constellations to identify time frames, right? Seasons, when it was made, right? Now, I'll give you an example. There was a picture of a in the movie Sherlock Holmes, right? He's trying to figure out whether this picture is a fake or not. And he looks at the constellation and he knows that that constellation only existed at a time before the original was created. So he knows it was fake, right? Now, this constellation pictured here was in the mid 17th century, I think, something like that. Maybe even before that. But this constellation was pictured all over the world in these same paintings.
Listen, how do you know it is a constellation and not a man throwing balls, you know, out of a game?
Tasteless, come on, man.
No, not come on. Tell me, how do you know it refers to a
Because
constellation?
the other images, look, these are part of a mural, and the mural depicts it doesn't just have constant balls, right? It has a sun. It has constellations that we recognize. Multiple constellations. Like if there's a
I see the so-called constellations, but I don't see the mermaid.
And like and it's just, you know, all these different constellations. You just want to say that's just coincidence?
No. You calling them constellations, and you know, a different pattern that you might, you know, recognize because you are aware of it because it exists on your mind. Yeah, man. I mean, constellations are you can draw points or, you know, patterns from points to create different things. But how would you know that that is a constellation for sure, and
Look,
not just
I'm
an
not
arbitrary?
I'm not an astronomer, right? But people that do know about astronomy, people who are in the business of researching this, right? Like the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. They are authorities and they have acknowledged that they are constellations. So
I
if
see.
you have a problem with that, you can take it up with them, right? But I mean, you're just going to be going against authorities.
I understand. So we don't want to go against the authorities. But okay, so you're saying that constellations were, very distinct in the sky back then. So what?
Yeah, so
And many
that means
people
that these
saw
are all
those
dated to around the
constellations.
same period.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's even more unlikely for all these different cultures and societies, which are geographically isolated from each other, to have the same exact sightings of the same exact creature at the
Constellations.
same exact time.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Do we recognize, Tomer, that back in the day, the sky looked very different from what it looks right now? So it might be the case that that particular constellation was
That's
very
how
wrong.
we identify it.
Yeah.
No, Tasteless, you've actually no Tasteless. So there's a thing called proper motion, right? And we can calculate through the movement where they are and where they have been, where they're going to be.
No. But I'm talking about
They're
the
not bouncing
appearance.
around
Gabe.
there like billiards on a pool
No,
table.
no, Gabe. I'm talking about the appearance. I mean, and this is a thing. I mean, how the sky looked, before it was more bright. It was, more clear than right now because, we are not able to fully, get or to get the full beauty of the night sight because of all the lighting and whatnot, right? But back in the day, I mean, the sky looked different. I'm not saying the constellations, but what if that it was the case that back then that particular pattern in the skies was very bright, so bright that people were just amazed by it, and they just portray it in different arts.
You're missing the point. So what Tom's saying is that these communities, these cultures, right, were isolated from each other, right? We didn't have the technology. In
Yes,
your
but they saw
example,
the
you
sky,
said
right?
about right, they saw the sky, right? So you concentrate on the sky too much when you should be more concentrate on what Tom's saying is right. Your example you gave with the Star Wars poster, right? We know that we have the technology to propagate and transmit instantly, or even when Star Wars came out, by mail service, by air, this idea of Star Wars, right? Tom's saying, look at all these disparate communities, these cultures that had very, very similar cave paintings that all occurred around the same time. What Tom's saying is that the idea of the constellations being visible in a particular pattern is indicative of it being within a certain time frame. We know that because of proper motion of the stars, right? Don't concentrate too much on what he's saying about the stars. Concentrate on saying that this is kind of confirming that these were done at the same time in regions that weren't connected. With technology, we didn't have to travel between areas. So did you understand what he's saying? He's saying, how have they all come up with this idea, right? Separate from each other.
Okay, no. That's separate from each other. I mean, that is an assumption, dude. I mean, for all I know,
it's not an assumption.
let me speak. For all I know, there might be, and eventually you will see this, right? But there is some evidence to suggest that there was a civilization, or our civilization achieved a great deal of advancement, that all, we were connected as we are connected right now. And perhaps it was the case that people decided to build these pyramids and these structures to sustain or to propagate, or to communicate the advancement that we achieved as, as humans, that would, resist the passage of time, and that the civilizations that were surrounding those structures, they meet these structures. They didn't build them, but they fucking they encountered them, they discovered them. So
even if that
it
was
is a possibility. There's a possibility that we were
Even if
interconnected as we are now.
Wait, hold on. So even if that was the case, right? They used that technology to lie in cave paintings about mermaids?
What do you mean? No.
So, whoa,
Listen,
hold on. You're creating
it's like
this
saying that
scenario.
Chewbacca is real because you saw it in a poster of Star Wars in the future.
You're creating.
This is the problem, Gabe.
You're creating a fantasy scenario that's completely unsubstantiated.
No, not at
away
all.
These cave. Well, let me finish what I'm saying. You're saying they had this. Let me grant you that there was this ancient technology that allowed people to communicate to remote regions of the world within a time frame, right? Again, this is what Tom's saying about the constellation, is that you can date and give a time frame that they're roughly at the same time by these constellations, right? They're saying that there's technology that allowed them to communicate quicker, right?
Not technology. The achieve the
Well, it doesn't
I am
matter.
suggesting,
It doesn't
Gabe,
matter if it's a
that
magic
the
spell, right?
civilization came to a similar type of.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they had a magic telephone or they threw rocks really far, right? But you're saying they had a way of communicating, and they used that way of communicating to lie about mermaids on cave paintings.
What do you mean lie about mermaids?
But
This is what I'm talking about.
What you're saying is it doesn't matter how they got there. Listen, Tasteless, it doesn't matter how these cave paintings got there, right? What exists, right, is a bunch of different cave paintings in different areas of the world depicting very similar things, right, at a similar time.
I understand. Now, it might be the case also that this civilization, enjoyed perhaps a type of movie that where there was guys with heads of birds and different types of mixtures between animals and whatnot, like in Egypt, and they decided to portray this art and to immortalize it in this particular thing, not to realize. I mean, they would never realize that we were to think, oh man, these people were so dumb, they really believe this shit, instead of thinking, hey man, this is art or something like that, right? Something they appreciated. So it could be the case, right, that this civilization was like ours, communicated. They all decided to build these pyramids and this long-lasting structures as a way to show that we achieved this level of fucking advancement. Why? Because in Machu Picchu you have no way to get rocks there. It is like so clear that this is the intention of these structures, yet we think that these civilizations, these Indians or Aborigines that are decided to stay there, actually build them, and that they believe in this shit, that to them they were gods or whatnot. Perhaps that was the case, right? Perhaps the Aborigines thought that these structures were gods, but it is more likely the case that we achieved this level of development, that we decided to do that. And I don't know, man, to me it sounds like art, not like fucking real thing. The same way, like I'm telling you, Gabe, that if some civilizations in the future founded a poster of Star Wars, they would think that we were able to do this, and that we actually lived with these creatures like Chewbacca and whatnot, right? With the Jabba the Hutt.
Right. So what are we going to do? Just make up stories about how things could have been?
Well, I'm sorry, Gabe. I would think. I would say that if we found evidence,
hold on. You talked for a long time
for
then,
this
right?
shit, that would convince me. But it is not consistent.
Well, hold on. When Tom presented you, right, with a piece of evidence, your answer was to make up a story about ancient technology, right, and movies. Now, you added probability into it. You said what is more likely, right? Now, I'm not sure, right, that the ancient technology is more likely than mermaids at this point, Tasteless.
I understand. So
I mean, look,
Gabe, but by the same token, you would say that humans with with heads like birds and jaguars and whatnot, this is a real thing because they are portrayed in a sculpture, in a picture.
That's not what I said at all.
Well, it is the same thing, Gabe. I mean,
The
many
same thing as
differences.
what the ancient
Civilizations,
the ancient
they have
technology
these
we just talked about.
mixtures. They have these mixtures of humanoid and animals. So I don't know, man. I mean, if that is the basis for your beliefs, all I would say is the following: since we have no mermaids that we know about, that we don't have any empirical physical evidence to suggest that is the case. I wouldn't think that a story or a miss fucking perception of certain people accounts for the existence of mermaids.
Why would that be the end? If that was the case, this wouldn't be a debate, right? It'd be like debating the existence of dogs. We have empirical evidence dogs exist. So why are you talking about empirical evidence? Then this wouldn't be a debate, right?
Oh yeah. Because the lack of consistency and consistency of these creatures, the existence of these creatures, they are reduce the likelihood or the possibility of them existing. If they existed, I'm sure that we would have, different types of evidence.
Isn't that the case for any rare breed, though?
So if we don't have those,
leopard,
that
rarely
evidence.
seen?
I'm sorry, what?
Isn't that consistent with any rare breed, though, right? Such as the snow leopard, which is rarely.
What do you mean?
Rare breeds are rarely ever encountered, right? By virtue of the fact that they're rare. So it doesn't mean they don't exist just because we rarely encounter it. And who's to say that we just haven't seen one in recent history?
So let's say if we haven't seen one in different, in recent history, what do you think that is saying?
I'm saying it's possible that it's a rare breed or rare type of animal that you wouldn't expect to see with any kind of frequency. So the lack of any observation is not a refutation of its existence, is my point.
And how do you assess possibility?
What?
How do you assess the possibility in this case?
Why do I have to be assessing possibility?
You're saying it is possible.
If it's a rare breed, you wouldn't expect to see it with frequency, like I said. So,
yeah, but like I said, I mean, for instance, in the case that we were talking about different, strange creatures, right? Yes, we can make the claim that there are strange creatures. But when we're talking about a very particular type of breed and type of, being that merges, a human being in a fish, the probability drops, in my opinion.
That's just an assumption, though, right? It's just an assumption, right?
The more things you add, the less likely it is the case, right? So if you say, not only that, but they have wings, and they have a fucking, they have fucking wings, and they exhibit light. So the more fucking mixture of shit you make, the less, likely it is, the possibility reduces to, 0.
I don't know.
So we're not talking about a strange bread. We're talking about a particular mixture.
Tasteless. How have you arrived at that conclusion? Because it just seems like they're just different traits than other animals have, which is trivial for any difference between species, right? They have different traits. So we're just talking about another animal with a different set of traits. I don't know what you mean by adding, right? We're just mixing and matching traits. What's being added? It's just a different set of traits in another species. And all I'm saying is that it could be a rare species where you wouldn't expect to encounter it very frequently.
Well, you're mixing two very different, types of beings.
So what? So does that make it? Because it goes against your intuition, doesn't mean that it has a low probability. Just because you think that it sounds ridiculous.
Yes. No, it does.
Really?
Yes,
your opinion somehow decides probabilities about the universe. That's
listen. Yeah, man. If you're saying, yeah, man, let's have a human with a, just the head of a bird. Yes, man, that is less likely. It is not just the traits of animals and why not. You're trying to merge these things when they are not, the case. You're talking about, the anatomy and the biology of existent beings. They serve a purpose and they are the result of the environment. So whenever you're trying to mix two totally different types of beings from different environments into one, you would have to have a reason to do that, okay? And nature would have a reason to do that. Now, in the case that we see, or we saw, these birds, with flies, there is a reason for that, right? There is a particular reason that it is the result of this fish's behavior and habits. So in the case that the more traits you add into the mixture, the less likely it is, for it to exist.
Says who?
Yeah, it also have wings, right? but those wings are not just like a bird, but they are like like a mosquito. So yeah, the more things you add into the fucking mixture, the less likely it is the case.
Yeah, I don't. You haven't really given any reason for that. It's just you're just kind of asserting it. So if we were to combine something like, let's say, a crocodile and a fish, right? That would be low probability. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying two different animals from two different environments.
Right, a crocodile and a fish typically have different environments. Crocodiles stay on land, fish are in the water. You combine those two attributes, right? That's probably a low likelihood, right? By your logic, right?
Huh?
If I was to combine the features of a crocodile and a fish, by your logic, that would be a low probability.
They share many traits, dude. It's like saying, like you trying to say that, mixing traits. We have the monkeys, right? And they share many traits with us. But that is not the case. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about, different species that are the result of their environment. There are different environments. Then you wanted to create a creature that, mixes these traits, which are the result of different environments, into one.
Right, crocodiles live on land
less
primarily, not in the ocean. Crocodiles live on land, and fish live in the water. So with the mixture of
crocodiles live in the water.
Crocodiles.
Get back to talking about mermaids.
Yeah, I want to make a point though. I don't understand why that would be any less likely than mixing at the top of a human and the bottom of a fish, right? Crocodiles live in entirely different environments than do fish, primarily speaking. Crocodiles don't live underwater, they live in the land. They may visit the water occasionally, okay, but they're primarily adapted to live on the land. They breathe air, blah, blah, blah. Fish do not breathe air, well, they breathe air, but they breathe underwater, right? So there's very different traits, right? So if I was to combine the traits of both those animals, would that also be unlikely?
I'm sorry, what?
Forget it. My point was going to be that you would find such a species. It's called tectolic, right? But you didn't seem to think that was.
It's called what?
Tectolic.
Tectolic.
Transitional species between fish and on land animals. That essentially combines the features of crocodiles and fish in some way that we've actually found. That's been shown to be real, right? So merely the combination of different features from different species doesn't make it mean that something doesn't exist or lowers a probability, right? Evolution produces all kinds of fantastic things.
Uh-huh.
Also, Tasteless, do you think that evolution has a goal?
No, I think it has a purpose.
Do you think evolution has a purpose?
Yeah.
What's the purpose?
Well, the purpose of evolution is to be able to adapt and to, persist the environment, the dangers of the environment. So yeah, man. The goal of life, not evolution, the goal of life is to sustain itself and to, reproduce and to persist, to not die. Evolution is the result of this effort of life and trying to persist and trying to adapt to the different dangers and risks in the environment, in your surroundings. So yeah, evolution comes as a result of that goal and purpose. Oh, that's an interesting,
Wait, where were you gonna draw it back to? Mermaid. Made the point about Tiktaalik.
My point is that just the mere mix of features that seem at face value to be incongruent doesn't mean that such a creature doesn't exist. Tiktaalik exists, right? Mermaids could exist by the same reasoning.
Holy shit, dude. That is an interesting picture.
What are you looking at? I can't see anything.
Where did you get that, Krill?
What are you looking at?
I'm looking at the fucking pictures. Where did you get those pictures?
Where are they in main chat?
They seem, yeah, yeah. Can I get the source?
Oh, the cave painting. You want to address the mermaid cave painting now? Is that right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Are you talking about the cave paintings that posted like 25 minutes ago?
Yeah, dude. I thought
Yeah.
that you're following along, but that comes from very in-depth YouTube documentaries about the existence of mermaids. Some really rigorous, real best kind of stuff. You know, only the best and brightest. These experts are really
Really?
paying attention to these cave paintings. They're drawing these inferences. People made them knew about the.
Okay, you share the source.
Did you hear Tasteless' explanation of how a possible reason of how different cultures could come up with the same idea because of the ancient technology?
I didn't catch that one. What's that?
So he said pyramids a lot. Don't get me wrong. I'm having to ad-lib this because it was garbled shite. That there was they had technology and they liked movies at the time about people with animal features like bird heads, and those movies were popular all across the world at the time, and they used pyramids to transmit them. That could be the case. Apparently, that was the explanation why there was.
So there's a link there, Tasteless. It's from a user called Joel Mackey. This is a in-depth documentary done about mermaids, the bodies that were, the body found. That's the title of it. So if it's called The Body Found, you'd think they'd have some kind of evidence. And mind you, this wasn't just like some YouTube documentary. This one actually premiered on Animal Planet. Animal Planet's a pretty serious television station. They have.
You can take that sort of documentary to the bank, Tasteless.
They have a reputation, Tasteless.
I'm sure they do.
They got bills to pay, Tasteless.
Now,
They got
one of the pieces of evidence here is claimed that it was stolen footage of mermaids in a tank at a U.S. naval facility. Now that claim might lead us to believe that the government knows about the existence of mermaids.
It tastes this stuff has all been like thought of. I mean, it's all been vetted, right?
Oh, it has.
It's practically fact now.
It's practically a fact, a scientific fact.
You're like Scully from the X-Files. Like you're in the face of blatant evidence, you just but science. So maybe.
Basis, I want you to
You
take a
saw
look
what
at
happened
this.
to Skulder, dude.
I want you to take a look at this Malaysian mermaid, which was found on the beach near a fishing village, a place called Teluk Bahang, Penang.
Exactly where you'd expect to find one. Fishing village, close to the water.
Holy fucking
Look
shit!
at these
I think that needs to be a not safe for work.
No, that looks yeah.
That is scary.
Wait, is that all it took to defeat Tasteless on this point?
Oh my gosh. This is a very serious looking discovery.
You can see how they'd mistake the fins on the head for a luxurious women's locks as the water crashed onto the rocks and they sang their siren song, beckoning them to their doom. The silhouette of the slender waif-like body would attract the hungry seamen that had been at large on the high waters, nothing but limes and old meat jerky to eat for months at a time, and they would be enticed by that, not knowing that when they got there they'd be lured to their doom. Because from a distance, that would be what would be called a low-resolution minger, right? From a distance, looks attractive, but when you get really close, they're quite ugly. So you can see how even though it's repulsive up close.
Now this is also from the link here. I posted a archaeological evidence of a mermaid. If you look there at the dirt there, you'll see it looks like the top half is a human skeleton. You can see very clearly the skull and arm. human features. Then when you get to the when you get to the bottom, it looks like it's a very clearly a fish-like tail. And then there's a
Okay,
ruler
so
there.
you're out of your league here.
Yeah, that doesn't seem, Photoshop at all, dude.
Well, that
Would you say that? Would you say that after seeing this photo, the probability is up a little bit?
Is up that what? That people, do images of mermaids? No, man, I would say that.
What?
What do you think this is evidence for?
The existence of mermaids.
You really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How so?
Because it's a picture of a mermaid.
We would expect to find the remains of mermaids.
corroborate that? I
apparently
mean,
have.
can you really say that it is a picture of a mermaid, of an actual mermaid?
So if I show you a
Of
picture of a dog and I
real-
say this is evidence for dogs, you're gonna say, could you corroborate that?
Well, yeah, because dogs exist, right?
Dogs exists?
Yeah, dogs exists.
Mermaids exist, and I'm showing it to you, Tasteless here.
Do mermaids
Yeah.
exist?
Well, mermaids they don't exist.
Dogs?
No, mermaid says.
But this is the evidence that they do, Tasteless.
That is evidence of a photograph or an image, rather.
What?
Wow, you're so dishonest. My God. Just another example of confirmation bias.
Now, are you playing games with the meaning of the word existence again?
Another fucking what? Yeah.
What was that?
That was me trying to meditate.
This is smelling
and
his
to
own
relax.
farts again, guys.
Tasteless,
why do you do that?
I have some people. I'm curious what your credentials are on being able to identify and disconfirm mermaids. Do you have any formal training?
Well, I'm gonna need a citation for that.
A citation for
For
a
me
question?
asking you a question?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. The citation is from an audio recording that I took 5 seconds ago. How about that?
I'll give you a citation. There you go. There's one.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you need credentials to be able to, correctly assess a piece of evidence being presented? Yes.
Well, I think it helps. I think it helps a lot, especially if they don't exist, and that's your assessment. The extent of it. No?
Yeah. If they existed, or if they exist, or their existence is proven, how are we not, having all these scientists, breaking that fucking, news?
Well, it's very covert. There's only a couple instances worldwide of mermaids actually being seen here. They're in like far remote reaches of the planet. The population could be low, so that lowers the likelihood of them being discovered here. And then
Chum, are you trolling, man?
some of it is protected by the government. I explained to you. I linked to you that footage of some creature in a tank. Wasn't quite fish, wasn't quite human.
You sound like you're trolling, man.
The government might be paying their workers, their soldiers, help keep this thing under wraps. Why would they want the population to think that mermaids are real?
I mean, you guys saw the Shape of Water, right? And how much the government's been pushing that movie. It's possible that they're getting ready to make an announcement.
It's true. They've been covering up unidentified floating objects since like the 40s. We all know this.
I mean, do we really think the moon landing happened? Let's be honest.
I just got back. Tasteless Do you agree that mermaids exist yet?
I don't know, man.
I'm just getting really tired of the ultra skepticism, man. It's like getting really lame.
Yeah.
Tasteless, I
Did
want
you
you to
ever
look at
address
that.
my argument about the giant squid?
Oh,
The giant squid. What was the argument? That people said that such creature didn't exist, but there was no. I mean,
Well, no, Tasteless.
there is no. Let's say, oof. Okay, they're basically just saying that it is a species, but just a bigger one, right? And yeah, man, there are very big species in the sea. I don't know why people, said that creature didn't exist. To me,
Well, for the same reasons that you say mermaids don't exist.
well, no, but
Like, for
mermaids is a different
example,
claim.
no one's ever. We don't have any. We never caught a mermaid, right? Well, they had never caught a giant squid. There was
Yeah,
no
but
giant squid that you could find, in a fucking museum or something.
yeah, but I don't know what people, doubted the existence of these creatures, man. I mean, it is basically the same species, yeah, just a little bit bigger. And you go ahead now. Listen. You go ahead and see the fucking species in the ocean, and you get a lot of big ass fucking species, dude. So I don't know. I think in that case, people were in the wrong by believing these creatures didn't exist. However, in the case of mermaids, by the nature and the mixture of this strange, creature, it is a product of the imagination rather than any fucking logical or rational, explanation, dude. I mean, in this case, mermaids is different.
Do you believe that human-sized seahorses exist?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you believe that human-sized seahorses exist?
Well, I don't know if they do, but I'm sure they could exist. Yes.
Oh, so anything can exist, right?
What do you mean? No.
Anything that exists, a bigger version, a deluxe version, could exist.
Well, in the ocean, that is the case. I mean, perhaps it is the the water pressure, and that these animals that they need to be bigger. Perhaps if you would say, hey man, there is a giant fucking what you will call mermaid, I would be more inclined to believe that that is the case.
I would be more inclined to believe that that giant mermaid exists.
Yeah, a normal giant, a normal fucking mermaid, no, but a giant one, perhaps.
Basis, what do you think about
I'm
this
not
cave
sure.
painting here?
What do I think? Okay, wait.
Tasteless, you're an idiot.
I think this one makes it pretty clear. I mean, it's rare. There's a lot of primitive ones, and then there's not so much more modern ones where there's more detail. I guess that would
Holy fucking shit, dude.
that would be evidence that the population has been dwindling over time.
Yeah, that looks photoshopped.
Why does that look photoshopped?
I don't know. It just
Google reverse image search it. Tasteless, don't you know what that is?
There's lots of stuff like this. I mean, look, let me show you something else. This is the exact same imagery, but this is like a French one.
Like, I don't know how you address the argument.
Listen, man, that picture you posted, it is obviously a guy, with a fucking suit on. It is obvious. I mean, you have the fucking everything. I mean, it doesn't seem like one being.
Tasteless, it's pen and ink. This is not a pipe.
Holy shit! No. That is amazing.
Well, Tasteless, look. You're uncomfortable in your mind, right? You're having a real problem with mermaids, but You're fine with large squids. You're fine with gigantic crabs and crustaceans, mollusks the size of houses. Right. Now that's fine. You
What about
believe
dragons?
it's dragons the size of eggs, right? Whatever. Well, what if you replace mermaids with aliens, right? I mean, would you be accepted of aliens? You're more receptive of aliens, right? You wouldn't say that people are nuts for thinking aliens exist.
Yes.
You would do.
No, I'm answering Fiction Fighter.
Which one do you think's more probability, aliens or mermaids?
More
Which one do you think's
probable.
more probable? Yes.
I don't know
sir.
how to assess these probabilities, dude, but qualitatively, I would say.
Just go with your gut.
I would say that listen, I think that there is a possibility that we came from Mars.
Oh, fuck.
Answer the fucking question.
Oh, shit. We're going deep, boys.
Now, we are
And women
aliens.
are from Venus. Men are from Mars and women are from
Okay,
Venus.
I think aliens
I
exist.
once knew a
Gabe.
girl whose body was shaped like a.
You think aliens exist?
Yes.
And we are them, right, Tasteless?
Why do you think aliens
Well,
exist?
holy fucking shit.
Why do you think aliens exist?
Oh, because they do exist.
Tasteless is just popping open bottle after
We're
bottle
talking
of red
about
pills here.
yes. You have. I mean, why do you think
I'm trying not to choke on
you
them,
need the wall?
No, answer the question. Why do you think aliens exist?
Because they do exist.
Why do you think aliens exist?
Tasteless, I want to know more about the reasoning why humans come from Mars. Can you crack that
No,
open?
well, we'll get to that first, but he needs to answer this question honestly here. He's just trolling. Why do you think aliens exist?
Because they do exist. I
When
mean,
did you become aware
It's not
of
a
it?
real answer, man.
When did you become
dude,
aware of it?
what do you mean aliens exist? Of course they do. What is the biggest? Well, one of the biggest issues that your country is facing, if not alien invasion.
Who is aware of aliens?
What? Everyone.
What?
Are you kidding me, dude?
We're aware of the concept of aliens.
Wait,
The
hold on.
concept exists.
I was just gonna breeze past
Taste-
what he's trying to do now, right?
Tasteless
I don't
says
think- don't
everyone's
give him
aware of
any credit for
aliens.
what he's trying to do now.
Tom,
'cause
are
it's
you aware of
really-
aliens?
No.
Okay, Tasteless, your response, please.
You don't believe in that the aliens exist, Tom?
You haven't distinguished between illegal aliens, as
No,
in like immigrants, versus extraterrestrials.
Oh yeah. Of course, I'm talking about immigrants.
Oh, and Tasteless, I'm curious. Do you have any formal training in assessing the existence of aliens?
Of immigrants? No, but
No, like
we don't
Mars
need that because it
aliens
is axiomatic.
or-
Right. Tasteless, when you were first
Oh,
asked
okay,
the
it's
question,
actually bad.
you gave a lot of humming and hawing. You said, I'm not quite sure. And
Well,
now
you mentioned
you're-
Mars.
What changed in that period of time?
I didn't listen to you, Ben.
I mean, tasteless. I mean,
Can we drop it?
I get that-
I am
I get
doing
the-
something. I'm not paying full attention to this conversation now.
Yeah, obviously.
Let's get back to
I
what
get
we
the
were talking
joke.
I'm sorry.
like,
I agree. I
wasn't
agree.
funny. We'll try and move
I
on from
agree.
that.
I agree that Tomer thinks that mermaids exist, and that's fine. I concede to that.
Well, can we get back to your reasons why you think that humans come from Mars? I really want to know about that. I want to get red pilled. I want to know all about everything to do. Can you go into a little bit of your reasoning?
Looks like Tasteless is done. How long you guys been going?
Oh yeah. I'm busy right now.
Sorry, I'll wait for you to come back because I really want to know about
Oh,
that.
what do you want to know about? What?
I really want to know your reasons why you think that humans come from Mars.
Oh, I see. No, there is a possibility that I'm not saying that they do, but I really think that could be, a possibility.
Okay, well, I guess you don't have to talk about the reasoning. I'd just be
No,
curious
that's
to
fine.
know
That's fine.
your thoughts
Yeah,
on
yeah,
it,
yeah.
I guess.
But I can't right now. I'm busy, dude.
Okay,
Talk among yourselves.
yeah, that's fair. Damn, this was. I want to know all about this. So intriguing now. Can't stop thinking about humans from Mars. I know Batman always talks about Miller Urey producing both left and right-handed amino acids. I haven't really been able to find like a credible source that this is like a problem in the scientific community, but I did find that asteroids from other planets have significantly more left-handed amino acids because of, I guess, the UV that's in space, ultraviolet radiation, and something about being clockwise or counterclockwise, being whether it was the UV, something else, caused asteroids to be all left-handed. Well, maybe Tasteless has solved the problem here. Maybe an asteroid from Mars came and collided with Earth, carried the vital amino acids which were necessary to start up biogenesis. What do you think about that theory?
When you're talking to Jim and you mention the left-handed, right-handed shit, do you think he's even contemplating, right? Do you think there's any image being ingrained in his mind, being burnt into his frontal lobe that isn't anything to do with actually what hand you hold your pen in?
Probably not. I
No.
I really wanted to ask him about what left-handed versus right-handed amino acids means, whether he has a conception of that, but I really don't think he does. But I would just love to see him perform, just ask him and watch him go. You know?
I think I could predict pretty much what he would do. It would be like something along the lines of, "Wouldn't you agree, sir? Let me ask you this, sir."
Route it
I'm
back to the
assuming,
laws of logic.
right? I'm sure you can. Yeah, it'd be. I wonder if it's.
Because I have asked him stumpers in the past, and he's done exactly that.
I'm curious if you bring it up with DD and ask him about that, how long it'll take him before he mutes you.
Do you know, with
It
the
is
type
certainly
of
a shortcut to being put on the troll list.
the type of brain damage that Jim's got apparently, if he takes any more knocks to the head or even has a particularly bad coughing fit or sneezing fit, that can actually make it a lot worse. Rattling that round in his skull, yeah. Maybe it's why he stays in so much or whatever. But,
I'm actually muted right now by DD permanently, I guess, in politics. I'm gonna see if I can eventually get unmuted. If I can still talk in there whenever I do.
I'm muted in there as well. I don't know who muted me or whatever.
All it took was he said, what was it? He said that my beliefs, which arise from my properly basic beliefs or my epistemological axioms, are also what is it? Assumptions, or I guess you could interchange it with unjustified. But I asked him. I said that assumptions are not like some kind of transitive thing. Like if one thing is an assumption, that doesn't make everything based on it an assumption, by fiat or whatever. And then he said, and he was like thinking about arguing against it, and he asked me if that's on my worldview or his worldview, and I said it's on my worldview. And then he just kind of avoided it. He just wouldn't give. Just kind of went in circles. I guess I went in a circle with him for a little too long, and he just ended up, okay, fuck off. Then he mutes me. I just message him, get wrecked, and that.
That's the proper course of action. I think if you can get erect in there, you really know you've done well, especially if you feel like you deserve it. Yeah, I've noticed he's been swearing a lot more. It's hilarious.
Yeah, Chump did a good job there.
When he was calling that guy a fucking liar, that
You
was
watched
just.
it, Tasteless. I'm so
Yeah,
honored.
man.
I'm really
Wait,
glad
what-
you watched it.
What happened?
Tasteless watched my debate with DD, the one that you watched.
What did he think?
Yeah, what do you think?
Oh, he did a good job.
Thanks.
Fucking Chump. Okay, that's fine, dude. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I really wanted to know more about your. Is that like a belief you have? Was that like a belief you had
No, no,
about
no,
the
no,
humans
no,
from
no, no,
Mars,
no.
or was that
Dude,
something you were playing with?
I have to go.
You're
Be
just
right back.
thinking about it.
Yeah, Chump.
All right. No, I understand. Okay. Well, there goes Tasteless.